Chapter 1033. That Princess Yutao wants to marry me? Chu Luchan also got the news, narrowing his eyes meaningfully and asking. Yes, it's not only Princess Yutao's idea, but also the idea of the royal family of Su country. Therefore, the letter of credence was sent to the capital city. Although our guards kept an eye on it, they only stared at the letters of Commandery Prince Qing and Ningyuan Army General. They didn't dare to stop the letter of credence from Su country. Xiao Xuanzi explained carefully. Speaking of this, he did have a headache. How could the letter of credence be intercepted at will, especially at this time? However, something happened to the letter that couldn't be intercepted. It clearly sent the message of Su country to the emperor, so that both the emperor and the empress dowager were attracted by it. She planned to plot against his master. Xiao Xuanzi felt a chill on his back. His master was not so easy to plot. Did Princess Yutao really want to die and wanted to marry him? There are 3 princesses in Su country. Princess Yutao is the oldest. Princess Yuyan is about the same age, and the last one is still young. Chu Luchan said lazily in a light tone. Xiao Xuanzi hurriedly said, Master, there are 3 princesses indeed, but only Princess Yutao and Princess Yuyan are of the right age. This time, Princess Yutao is going to marry, but Princess Yen has a good relationship with Commandery Prince Qing. It's said that she visits Commandery Prince Qing from time to time. Someone even saw them playing outside together. Who is their birth mother? Chu Luchan seemed to be a little interested and asked in detail. Princess Yutao's birth mother is from the Su country. She is the legitimate daughter of a large tribe in the Su country and is also the queen of the Su country. She has a noble status. However, I heard that Princess Yu Yan's birth mother is a stunning beauty who is the favorite concubine of the Su emperor. She seems to be a Han who came from our place, but the Su country is very strict about the details. Xiao Xuanzi thought for a while and said, This favorite concubine only gave birth to a daughter? Chu Luchan asked. Not only a daughter, but also the first prince of Yen country. The current empress of Yen country has a little prince who is still in infancy and has no ability to compete with the first prince for the throne. I heard that many people of Yen country want to appoint the first prince as the crown prince of Yen country. If the empress of Yen country didn't have a powerful clan, she would have appointed this favorite concubine as the empress. Xiao Xuanzi sorted out the information he had inquired and then reported. From this perspective, the current situation in the Su nation was very similar to his own. Similarly, they didn't have a crown prince, and both sides were fighting openly and covertly for the position of crown prince. I remember that women in the Su nation can also inherit the throne. Chu Luchan said lazily. His smile looked gentle, but in Xiao Xuanzi's eyes, it was a bit cold and almost substantial. No matter how he looked at it, it made his heart tighten, as if something gorgeous and evil was slowly slipping through his eyes. There is such a saying, so a small number of people in the Su nation also support Princess Yutao, but the number is too small. After all, Princess Yutao has an elder brother. If she, a princess, marries far away, she will have nothing, let alone inherit the throne. If she wants to be the crown princess, she must also express in front of the throne that she will never marry, but she can choose a husband in the country and marry him into the imperial harem. Xiao Xuanzi said. This was the custom of the Su nation. Princesses also had the right to inherit the throne, but they inherited it. The princesses who inherited the throne couldn't marry outside, and the son-in-law also had to marry into the royal family. Of course, the children born by them had to follow the princess's surname. As for marrying outside, it was definitely impossible. Contact Princess Yutao and tell her that I want to see her. Chu Luchan stretched out his slender fingers and gently knocked on the table twice, and then said, he wanted to see Princess Yutao's will. If she really wanted to marry into the Su nation, he would not marry her, but he could help her marry anyone she wanted, even Chu Liuzhou in the capital city. But if Princess Yutao was also forced and didn't want to marry into the Su nation, it would be great. Yes, master, I will arrange it right now. Xiao Xuanzi nodded knowingly and left with a smile. He already had an idea in his mind. The news from Princess Yutao came quickly. When Chu Luchan just leaked the news, there was a reply from Princess Yutao. That night, Princess Yutao came from the Su nation with 2 trusted subordinates and secretly entered the city. The city was now under Chu Liuchen's control. Although Princess Yutao came in disguise, she immediately got the news. Princess, could it be fake? Did the people on the first prince's side do it on purpose? A maid dressed as a maid pulled the clothes of Princess Yutao, who walked in front of her, uneasily. In order to prevent others from recognizing her, Princess Yutao was dressed in a simple Han woman's clothing. Half of her face was covered with a veil, revealing only a pair of bright and beautiful eyes. Her bangs were long, concealing the glimmer of light in her eyes. From her appearance, she looked like an ordinary Han lady. The 2 maids were also dressed in the same way, but from their clothes, they seemed to be serving maids. This was the border, and the wind and sand were strong. The veil was not to prevent others from seeing her face, but to block the wind and sand. Especially on such a windy day, there were many Han women in the city who dressed like this. It won't happen. Princess Yutao shook her head. She was very beautiful, not the kind of delicate beauty, but a bit vigorous. She was much taller than ordinary women of the same age. Why not? Think about it. Before the messenger came, there was no such intention. I didn't expect that when the messenger came, there would be such a rumor. It was said that you have a crush on Prince Jin, but in fact, you haven't seen Prince Jin, so how can you have a crush on him? The maid said indignantly. Princess Yutao had never thought of marrying a man of low status, nor did she think that one day she would marry to the other country. The princess's ambition had never been this. But the news spread, and many people even believed it. Even the emperor came to ask the princess. In the past, the princess had repeatedly told the emperor that she would not marry. Isn't there a painting? I've seen it, and naturally there will be a rumor. Princess Yutao sneered. Her elder brother and second sister deliberately made people think that she had a crush on Prince Jin, and even encouraged her father to send a letter of credence, hinting to the emperor of Dongtsang that they wanted the 2 families to marry each other. From then on, the 2 families could live in peace, and if there were any problems, the 2 families could also deal with it together. Thinking of the painting, Princess Yutao's face became more and more gloomy. At that time, she was also curious, so she took a second look. It was also this look that stunned her, so she was caught by Yu Yan. At that time, there were many ministers who saw this scene, and after hearing Yu Yan's words, many nodded. Some of them were really stunned when they saw her, while some were originally on Yu Yan's side. Of course, their purpose was to make her marry far away and give up the throne. How could she be reconciled? Every time she saw her mother's tears, she would not be reconciled. She was just a woman who fled from the Han dynasty. Not only did she snatch everything that belonged to her mother, but she also wanted to snatch the throne that belonged to her son. What did she rely on? She had promised her mother that she would never marry, or in other words, she would not marry before her younger brother came of age. She would not give up the throne to the first prince. His mother had said that he originally had a real elder brother before him. It was that bitch who caused his mother to miscarry, which allowed his elder brother to occupy the position of the first prince. If he didn't acknowledge this position, his mother wouldn't either. Even if his father wanted to push him onto the throne, it would depend on whether he agreed or not. After those people knew that she did not want to marry, they actually did such a thing and even sent a portrait of Prince Jin to her. That was the kind that Princess Yutao liked most. She had been the eldest princess since she was a child, and her father liked her when she was young. He specially invited some Han teachers to teach her, treated her as a little prince, and followed the first prince's example in everything. Princess Yutao had always yearned for such an elegant scholar in the country of Dongtsang, who was as beautiful as jade. In the 4 books and 5 classics, there were often such beautiful phrases, causing Princess Yutao to yearn for it. However, it was only a yearning after all, she had her own ambitions. If there was fate in the future, when the throne was settled, she could find a Han as her husband, and the best choice would be this kind of gentle and warm-looking man. It could be said that this Prince Chen of the country of Dongtsang was completely in line with her imagination. He was the most perfect appearance that she could dream of, so she was stunned at that time. However, It was precisely this moment of stupor that caused her to fall into an abyss of suffering. For a moment, she was flustered and had yet to calm down. In fact, there was still a huge hidden danger. If the emperor of the Eastern Song Kingdom really agreed to the marriage, then the most likely person to marry over would be her. If she married far away, she would not be able to protect her mother and younger brother. Her mother had always been weak in the imperial harem. She seemed to be domineering, but she could not win her father's heart. As for the little brother, he was still young and it was not certain whether he could grow up. No one knew what methods that woman would use. Princess Yutao was really worried, so even if this Prince Chen met all her expectations, she could not marry him. She came to see this Prince Chen today, hoping that this Prince Chen also had other ambitions. Otherwise, she could only return disappointed. Following the guide in front of them, they came to an ordinary courtyard, which was the most common in this border city. The building was very simple, and the surrounding courtyards were not close to other courtyards, leaving a small alley on the side. The door was open, and a man who looked like a servant stood at the door, looking at Princess Yutao and her party with a smile, looking extremely kind. Princess Yutao and her party went forward. Xiao Xuanzi came over with a smile and saluted, then stepped back, waved his hand, and said with a smile, "Distinguished guests, please come with me. I have been waiting inside for a long time." Chapter 1034. The door of the courtyard opened and Princess Yutao entered. It was a very simple courtyard with an ordinary tree in it. It was not big, but its branches and leaves were lush. The door of the main room was open. Princess Yutao walked in slowly and saw Chu Luchen. Princess Yutao couldn't help but take a deep breath. Compared with the person in the painting, Prince Chen of Dongtsang country seemed to be more gentle and handsome. His delicate facial features were so perfect that people couldn't help looking at him. His light-colored lips indicated that he was in poor health, but even this light color made him look more like the immortal-like man described in the book. He raised his head and blinked his long eyelashes slightly, revealing a pair of deep eyes. Princess Yutao suddenly woke up from her infatuation with a cold aura when she met his eyes. It was a pair of eyes that was completely different from what she had imagined. His eyes were clearer and fainter than most people. But even if it was fainter, there was not a trace of light in his eyes. It was as if there was a bottomless abyss in his eyes. It made Princess Yutao's back feel cold and suffocating. Such a person was supposed to be as gentle as jade, with an amiable smile on his face. But because of the malice and bloodthirstiness in his eyes, Princess Yutao shivered and immediately realized that the Prince Chen in front of her was definitely not the one she saw in the painting. This was the real Prince Chen of Dongtsang, not the peerlessly beautiful young man in the painting. Princess Yutao? Chu Liuchen's cold eyes fell on Princess Yutao. He raised his head slightly and the smile on his face slowly disappeared. Princess Yutao of Su country greets Prince Chen. Princess Yutao took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully. There was no need to say too much. Prince Chen was certainly not an ordinary person. The coldness in his eyes and the cold aura was even stronger than that of her father. Such a person would not be weak, let alone a person who would be bullied by others. Many people in Su country were wrong. Princess Yutao said with a clear mind. The Prince Chen in front of her would not be a good husband, but he could be a good partner. Anyone who had only seen his portrait but had never seen him in person would never understand what kind of person he was. Who would have thought that a man as gentle as jade, so handsome that even the wind could blow him away, would actually have such eyes? Of course, Princess Yutao didn't think that the person in the portrait was wrong. If such a person was willing to smile and show kindness, he should look the same as in the portrait. But now, it was obvious that Prince Chen was only showing kindness, but a warning. Chu Luchen looked at Princess Yutao from head to toe without saying anything. Princess Yutao felt more and more uncomfortable. This was not how a man would look at a woman. There were many suitors around Princess Yutao, but none of them made her feel uncomfortable like Chu Luchen. The way he looked at her was not like he was looking at a young girl, but more like he was looking at a commodity. This made Princess Yutao even more uncomfortable. Although she had already defined Chu Luchen in her heart, she had always been proud of her appearance. There had never been a man who looked at her with such a picky gaze like a commodity. Yes, picky. She was such a perfect person, so what else could she be picky about? Master Yu Tao straightened her body and smiled perfectly. She straightened her back and said with a perfect smile, Yu Tao of the Su Kingdom pays respect to Prince Chen. Sit down. Chu Luchen withdrew his gaze from her and said lazily, Thank you, Prince Chen. Princess Yu Tao composed herself, walked to a chair on the side, and sat down. After Xiao Xuanzi served tea, he stood behind Chu Luchen to serve him. Prince Chen sent a message that he wants to meet Yu Tao. What do you want me to do? Princess Yu Tao pulled herself together, raised her faintly pink face, and went straight to the point. Princess Yu Tao doesn't know? Chu Luchen raised his eyebrows and asked casually. Princess Yu Tao hesitated for a moment and said, I really don't know. Aren't the envoys from your country, Prince Qingjun and Ning Yuan Army General from your country? These two envoys from your country are making an agreement with the ministers of our country these days. Is Prince Chen going to come here as an envoy? Chu Luchen leaned back lazily and said with a calm look in his eyes, If Princess Yu Tao is willing to marry me, I won't say anything. But I already have a legal wife, so I won't marry a concubine. Even in the end, I won't marry Princess Yu Tao. His words were extremely ruthless and cold. Princess Yu Tao couldn't help blushing at this moment even though she had thought it through clearly. She was very angry. There had never been a man who would say such ruthless words of rejection in front of her. She had always been the one who refused others, but no one could refuse her. On the way here, she had thought about what she should do if Prince Chen really liked her. Should she feign civility or refuse him directly? She didn't expect that before she did anything, Chu Luchen actually said so, as if she was eager to marry him. Even if she couldn't be his wife, she was willing to be his concubine. Prince Chen, please be careful with your words. The Emperor's order is as important as the sky. Princess Yu Tao said coldly. So what? I'm not Chu Qing. I can't decide who I want to marry or not. Chu Luchen curled his light-colored lips disdainfully and said with a smile. Princess Yu Tao's eyes narrowed into a line and she looked at Chu Luchen in surprise. She didn't know why Chu Luchen was so confident to say that. She had inquired about Chu Liuchen's family background. Like Chu Qing, he was the son of the former emperor of Dongtsang country. However, the former emperor had passed away, and the current throne belonged to their uncle. Their uncle had his own prince, so how could he treat them well? How could Chu Luchen be more confident than Chu Qing? Princess Yu Tao, do you think what Fei is thinking? Chu Luchen asked with a faint smile. He reached out and patted the table gently. Xiao Xuanzi hurriedly took out a booklet from behind and put it on the table. This is the booklet from Chu Qing. He wants to marry me, but I know nothing about it. Chu Luchen said. The booklet was on the table, which meant that it was for Princess Yu Tao to read. Princess Yu Tao looked at Prince Chen in front of her in horror and felt that she had to get to know him again. How could this person dare to intercept the memorial? Moreover, it was the memorial of his half-brother. They were both of the royal bloodline. How could he dare to do such a thing? Wasn't he afraid that the emperor of the Eastern Song country would be afraid of him and take his life? Is this the booklet sent by Commandery Prince Qin to the capital city? Princess Yu Tao asked again. Yes. As early as when I came here, it seems that someone in your country had already sent a message that a princess is going to marry Princess Yu Tao, but I don't know the emperor's intention. What does the emperor mean? Does he want to marry me? If you really want to marry me, I can help you. Prince Yu's mansion, Prince Zhou's mansion, or even the Imperial palace. Chu Liuchen's slender fingers gently tapped on the table with a sense of indifference. If it weren't for the bloody deep smile in his eyes, Princess Yu Tao felt that she would believe it more. Her back was full of cold sweat, and her heart was inexplicably flustered. Before she came here, she had thought that even if she could not defeat him, she at least had the beauty of a woman. Based on this point, although Prince Chen of Dongtsang country was fierce, he was also a man. How could he not have tender feelings for a woman like her? In fact, this was the most important reason why Princess Yu Tao dared to take the risk. Her own appearance made her believe that no man would mercilessly deal with her or kill her. But now she was not sure. In Prince Chen's eyes, she could not see any pity, only deep malice, and even a faint bloodthirst. which made his handsome face seem to be covered with a layer of fog. But for a moment she felt it was very clear. She could clearly see the coldness and ruthlessness. What shocked her more was the domineering tone in his words, as if he could send her anywhere he wanted. In Prince Chen's eyes, she was never a woman who deserved tender feelings. She was a commodity. Yes, she was a commodity that could be disposed of at will. This feeling was very bad. Princess Yutao pulled herself together again, stood up, and bowed to Chu Luchen elegantly. Prince Chen, I don't want to marry you. You don't want to marry me, or you don't want to marry anyone in Dongsong country. Chu Luchen played with a jade pendant in his hand, raised his eyebrows and asked. I don't want to marry anyone in Dongsong country. Please help me, Prince Chen. Princess Yutao stood up and looked at Chu Luchen. She did not dare to hide anything and said bluntly. She would not read the booklet on the table, nor did she need to read it. Now, she expressed her attitude. It was a very clear attitude. If your Highness Prince Chen can help me, I will definitely repay your kindness. Princess Yutao is very smart. Chu Luchen nodded, pointed to the chair and said, Princess Yutao, please sit down first. Since Princess Yutao asked me for help, I have to help her. I can't let others take advantage of her. But your country's letter of credence has been sent to my uncle, so you can't refuse to marry the princess, right? Chu Luchen suddenly chuckled, indicating something. The letter of credence had been sent, which meant that the two countries wanted to marry each other. Basically, it was settled, but the candidate was not confirmed. If Su country wanted to marry a princess, it could only be Princess Yu Yen. Of course, they could also choose other princesses from the royal family to be conferred the title of princess and marry into Dongsong country. Now, it was up to Princess Yutao to decide who to marry. This was also a benefit that Chu Luchen gave to Princess Yutao, or his sincerity. This sincerity was a bit cold and domineering, as if Chu Luchen could decide who to marry. Princess Yutao's expression became more and more cautious. If it weren't for the previous confrontation between the two of them, she would think that Prince Chen had great ambition but little talent, and the current situation was even more exaggerated. However, after the secret confrontation between the two of them just now, Princess Yutao no longer felt that his words were arrogant. Then, who should go to Dongsong country? Chapter 1035. Princess Yutao thought for a moment and said, We can have Imperial father confer Imperial uncle's daughter the title of princess and have her marry into your esteemed country. Her father had 2 brothers and each of them had a few daughters. Any one of them could be married off to the kingdom of Eastern Tsang as a princess, and it could also be considered as completing the relationship between the 2 countries. Princess Yutao is truly kind. I heard that the first prince of your country is very likely to become the crown prince. In the future, the first prince's bloodline should be more powerful than Princess Yutao's bloodline. If the first prince's sister marries the son of the first wife of a large clan, then the Su nation will belong to the first prince's family. Chu Luchen chuckled meaningfully. Princess Yutao's face changed dramatically. She gritted her teeth and said, Let Yen marry into the kingdom of Dongsong, but can you be sure that Yu Yen's marriage will not be satisfactory? She was afraid that after Princess Yu Yen married into the kingdom of Eastern Tsang, she would find a powerful faction for her elder brother and let Eastern Tsang help the crown prince seize power. My 2 elder brothers have been engaged as legal concubines. Even if the princess of the Su kingdom marries me, she can't be the legal concubine. As for the concubine wife, it's just a saying among the people. Basically, there are no concubines in the royal family. Of course, she can also be a concubine. This position seems to be a little low for a princess of a country. Only the legal concubine of Commandery Prince Qing is unknown. Chu Luchen looked at her and lifted his thin lips slightly. It wasn't that Princess Yutao wasn't ambitious, but she was very ambitious. That was good. He liked to make deals with ambitious people. At times like this, it was better to have ambition than to not have it. Of course, he preferred the inheritance method of the Su nation. Not only could it be passed down to sons, but it could also be passed down to daughters. If Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou married a princess of the Su country, she must be the princess. Even if Chu Luiyue and Chu Liuzhou didn't decide on the position of the princess, They couldn't marry the princess of the Sioux country as the princess. Once they married her, it meant that they gave up the position of crown prince. The royal family wouldn't allow the bloodline of the Sioux country. The people of the Sioux kingdom might not understand this point, but the people of the Dongtsang kingdom would, especially the royal descendants like Chu Luchun. Therefore, it was impossible for Chu Liuxin to marry Princess Yuan. After all, Chu Liuxin's mother still had her own ideas. Of course, there was also the possibility that she would be brought into the palace by the emperor. It all depended on the emperor. Commander Prince Qing once said that his fiancée is a lady from a prestigious family. Their families have been engaged for a long time. They have been engaged since they were young and they have different feelings for each other. When they returned, they planned to get married, Princess Yu Tao said in surprise. Is that what he said? Chu Luchun played with the teacup in his hand and said with a faint smile. Commander Prince Qing did say so, and he said it in front of all of us. He also said that he would buy something for his fiancée this time. It seems that he is very affectionate. Princess Yu Tao sensed something strange and asked in confusion, "Are these all false?" Of course it's true. However, his fiancée is just the niece of a low-ranking official. She can even be said to be an orphan. Of course, he has no affection for her since he was a child. He was raised in a special place since he was a child, so how could he have the companionship of his peers? Moreover, my uncle may not really agree to this marriage. If the princess of your country marries him, Chu Qing is a good choice. Chu Luchun looked at Princess Yu Tao and said with a faint smile. There were so many meanings in his words that Princess Yu Tao seriously thought about it. The more she thought about it, the more her eyes lit up. The more she thought about it, the better she felt it was. Princess Yu Tao had investigated Chu Qing very clearly. It was said that he was the son of the former emperor, but he was not loved, or was not recognized by others. His status in the royal family was really not high. If Princess Yu Yan could marry Chu Qing, it would be really great. He had no power and no person. If he could get rid of this little bitch, it would be much easier to deal with the old bitch who stayed in the palace. But my father will not agree, and they will not agree to let Princess Yu Yan marry him. Princess Yu Tao was tempted, but she frowned. With their love for Yu Yan, how could they let her marry Commander Prince Qing, who had no power and was destined to achieve nothing? Princess Yu Tao, where there is a will, there is a way, isn't it? If you don't have this opportunity, it will be useless even if you have any ideas in the future. Chu Liuchun's smile became more and more relaxed. He raised his eyes slightly and said, "As for me, it doesn't matter. If you must marry me, my uncle will be more willing to take over. I am not in good health, so I can't marry many people." The meaning was very clear. If Princess Yu Tao didn't want to let Princess Yu Yan marry him, then she could only marry him. If she married him, she could only enter the palace to be a concubine and accompany a man who was about the same age as her father, or even older than her father. How many young girls would be willing to marry him? Moreover, this Princess Yu Tao was an ambitious person. "I'll do it." Princess Yu Tao gritted her teeth and said. At this time, she had no way out. She couldn't marry him, and she had to cut off one of his arms. Now was the best opportunity to let Princess Yu Yan marry Chu Qing, the most useless prince, which could be regarded as the greatest help to her. This kind of opportunity was indeed rare. If she ran away, it would be gone. It's good that Princess Yu Tao thinks so. Commander Prince Qing will come back in 3 days. If we don't hurry up, I'm afraid that it will be a little troublesome. But if Princess Yu Tao can deal with things in these 3 days, it will be much easier. Ningyuan Army General, who will go with you, has always been an upright person. He will go back and report what he sees. Chu Luchun elegantly put down the teacup in his hand. His long eyelashes cast uneven shadows on his white face, and he looked somewhat handsome with a faint smile. I know what to do. Princess Yu Tao understood what Chu Luchun meant. She had to do something. Not only did she have to do it, but she also had to let Ningyuan Army General of the country of Dongtsang see it. In that way, neither Yu Yan nor Commander Prince Qing could escape. Originally, Commander Prince Qing just wanted to marry a woman who was not powerful, and even the emperor was not satisfied with her. Therefore, he wanted Yu Yan to be his wife. Although she had a good reputation, she had no real power. The down-and-out commandery Prince Qing's wife was really useless. Princess Yutao came and went secretly without alarming anyone. No one knew that she had reached an agreement with Chu Luchen. The Su kingdom was still preparing to marry her, and the capital city was also preparing to welcome the princess of the Su kingdom. As for where the princess would go in the end, they hadn't figured it out yet. It would be decided when she came. Since she came, the country of Dongtsang would make the final decision. The Su kingdom was originally a small country, and its national power couldn't be compared with that of the country of Dongtsang. The advantage it had was that it was a remote and barbarian land, which couldn't be easily entered by others. But something happened to the Su kingdom, and it happened to appear in front of Qin Huaiyong. Not only him, but also the two prime ministers of the Su kingdom, who were accompanying the Su kingdom, were also dumbfounded. There were two people on the bed in the room in front of them. The door was kicked open heavily. The two people on the bed had no time to put on their clothes. Chu Qing only pulled a corner of the quilt. On the other side, the beautiful Princess Yu Yan's face was as pale as jade. She was shivering and wrapped most of the quilt. At first glance, one could tell what they had experienced. Early this morning, Chu Luchen from the country of Dongtsang sent a letter. Such a letter was usually opened and read by Chu Qing and Qin Huaiyong together. Since the letter was delivered, Qin Huaiyong came to find Chu Qing, and the two prime ministers of the Su kingdom followed him. Previously, everyone was talking about the peace marriage between the princess of the Su kingdom and the country of Dongtsang. Although they didn't specify who it was, the meaning was very clear. Basically, it was Princess Yutao. Qin Huaiyong and Chu Qing also wrote a letter to tell Chu Luchen about it. Of course, they wouldn't say that the candidate of the peace marriage was Chu Luchen. They only said that the princess wanted to make peace, and today was the day that Chu Luchen would reply to them. The people of the Su kingdom were also very anxious, so they came with them. After entering the door, they saw that the servant outside was very flustered. When he went to report, he seemed to fall in a panic. Qin Huaiyong saw that something was wrong, so he didn't want the servant to lead the way and went directly to the main room. Then, because of the abnormal sound in the room, he kicked the door and came in. That was what he saw. Qin Huaiyong couldn't react for a moment. He stared blankly at Commandery Prince Qing and Princess Yu Yan on the bed, not knowing what was going on. Didn't they say that Princess Yutao was going to marry them? How did it become that Princess Yu Yan and Chu Qing were two ambiguous people? Get out! Princess Yu Yan shouted wildly with her clothes in a mess. At this time, Qin Huaiyong also came to his senses and hurriedly left. But when he walked to the door, he suddenly came to his senses. He sighed heavily and said to the two prime ministers who hadn't reacted yet, "Princess Yu Yan wants to marry our commandery Prince Qing. In this case, why do you have to be so unbearable? Just say it." After saying that, he retreated outside. The two prime ministers also came to their senses at this time. They shook their heads forcefully, but they could not vent their anger. Although Princess Yu Yan was arrogant in the past, how could she do such a thing at this time? This kind of thing was too much. The two prime ministers shook their heads and retreated helplessly. Princess Yu Yan had to marry even if she didn't want to. When they retreated outside, they suddenly heard banging sounds coming from inside. They knew that it was very chaotic inside. They shook their heads helplessly. In this situation, they could only hope for the best. This was not an unmarried man and an unmarried woman. What's more, the two countries were supposed to have a marriage alliance. Their current status was also suitable. This was good, and it saved them a lot of trouble. The two prime ministers were helpless at first. They looked at each other and could only do this. Qin Huaiyong stood in the corridor and looked at the gloomy weather outside. He didn't say anything else. Everything had been decided, and it was meaningless for him to say anything else. The one to marry was not Princess Yutao of the Su kingdom, but Princess Yu Yan. The person to marry was also determined. It was Chu Qing, who had the most hopeless royal bloodline in the country. This was different from what he had expected. What? Marry to the kingdom of Dongtsang? In a gorgeous palace, a gentle-looking woman was so shocked that the covered bowl in her hand fell to the ground and smashed into pieces. Chapter 1036. That's what the emperor said. He said that in the current situation, the second princess has to get married. The eunuch knelt on the ground and reported carefully. I will never agree. The woman stood up and was about to go out angrily. Your Highness, please calm down. An old maid stood up behind her and bowed respectfully. The woman stopped in her tracks. She was very beautiful. Although she was old, she was still so beautiful that it made people feel pity for her. What was especially outstanding was the gentleness that seeped out from her bones. It was as if just a gentle expression could make people want to protect her. However, the woman had lost her gentleness in the past. What had happened had shaken her foundation. How could she maintain her calmness in the past? It must be the Empress's side. It must be the Empress's side. How dare they? The woman stopped and scolded harshly. Your Highness, please be careful with your words. The old maid waved her hand and the eunuch left. Your Highness, this is the only thing we can do now. If the envoy of Dongtsang country sees Commandery Prince Qing and the second princess together, we will have to do it. Even if you insist on not marrying him, the second princess will not be able to marry a good man in our country. Besides, there is the marriage between the two countries. What you need to do now is not Princess Yuyan, but Princess Yutao. The old maid took 2 steps forward and leaned over to the woman to remind her. This woman was Princess Yuyan's biological mother, concubine Li, a Han woman who fled to the kingdom of Su. Of course, this was just what she looked like. Although the current matter had not been officially announced, it was basically set in stone. In this kind of matter, with the people of the 2 countries as witnesses, even the emperor could not do anything. Princess Yu Yen had to marry, whether she wanted to or not, she had to marry. What else can Yu Tao do? Concubine Li said impatiently. Her mind was full of her daughter's marriage to the kingdom of Dongtsang. How could she be willing? Princess Yuyan wants to marry to the kingdom of Dongtsang, and her husband is Commandery Prince Qing. Although Commandery Prince Qing is not good, think about it. Isn't it fortunate that he is still Commandery Prince Qing? The old maid tried to persuade her patiently, but there was another meaning in her words. Hearing her words, Consort Li's face darkened. She snorted, I don't think Chu Qing is good. He really thinks of himself as, Your Highness, be careful with your words. The old maid interrupted Consort Li again. She looked around and found 2 of Consort Li's confidants standing on both sides. Your Highness, the Empress has schemed against Princess Yuyan. Shouldn't we do the same? Even if Princess Yuyan has to marry the Empress, what about Princess Yutao? We can't let Princess Yutao stay in the country. The old maid reminded Concubine Li again. The most important thing at the moment was not Princess Yu Yan's matter. Whether Princess Yu Yan was willing or not, it was already a foregone conclusion. The most important thing at the moment was Princess Yutao's matter. Marrying Princess Yutao away was the greatest benefit for their branch. Without Princess Yutao blocking in front of him, the eldest prince can become the crown prince and ascend to the throne. Otherwise, the Empress's faction will not rest. They will make the Empress's faction unable to compete and stop their thoughts. The little prince is so young, the emperor will not consider the little prince as the crown prince. Consort Li began to ponder. The old maid seemed to have understood a little. She breathed a sigh of relief and said again. Now she was really afraid that Consort Li would make a scene regardless of everything. At this time, the more she made a scene, the more embarrassed the emperor would be and the more angry the emperor would be. Consort Li relied on the emperor's favor to get to where she was now. If she lost the emperor's favor, she would be nothing. How to send this girl away? The emperor has just decided on Yu Yan's matter and will not let Yu Tao marry to the kingdom of Dongtsang. It was originally agreed that Yu Tao would marry a princess. Consort Li was extremely vexed. Of course, she also hoped that Yu Tao would go far away, to the point where there was no end in sight. That was why she tried to persuade the emperor to marry Yu Tao to the kingdom of Dongtsang. She didn't expect that in the end, it would be her own daughter who would go. This stifling feeling made her face turn ashen. It must be the Empress, that bitch, who was going to marry Yu Tao, otherwise how could it be Yu Yan? Your Highness, don't worry. You can blame it on Prince Jin. The old maid said meaningfully. The so-called Prince Chun, of course, was Prince Chun of the kingdom of Dongzong. He was the son of the former emperor, but he lost the throne and did not have long to live. He was originally the husband that consort Li had chosen for Princess Yu Tao. He was not only good-looking but also had a noble status. However, he did not have a good health and could only live for a few years. Even if Yu Tao married him and had a noble status, she was just a widow. And the most important thing was that even if Yu Tao married him, Prince Chen was also a man who married a princess. It was said that Prince Chen and Princess Chen had a good relationship. Whether in terms of status or affection, Princess Yu Tao would not have a good life if she married him. What can a sick person do? Consort Li said impatiently, but at the same time, she breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, her daughter did not marry Prince Chen, otherwise she would be a widow. It can be said that Prince Chen has already known about it. We can't have a quarrel between the two countries because of Princess Yu Tao. I heard that Prince Chen is very favored by the emperor of the kingdom of Dongzong. If Prince Chen says something, Princess Yu Tao has to marry him. The old maid suggested. Okay, send a gift to Prince Chen and let him ask for it. Consort Li gritted her teeth and nodded. Come and help your highness dress up. The old maid took a step back and said in a loud voice. Then she lowered her voice and said, Your highness, remember not to disobey the emperor. You should be more reasonable than the emperor and be more aggrieved and submissive than in the past. I know. Consort Li nodded. For so many years, she had been like this and knew how to deal with the emperor. Just now, she was so angry that she lost her mind. She was going to see the emperor now. Although she would agree to it, she had to push Princess Yu Tao out and express her grievances. She was indeed aggrieved. Since she came to the kingdom of son-in-law, she had been aggrieved, but she had to wait for the opportunity to make a comeback. The kingdom of son-in-law was turbulent because of the affairs of Princess Yu Tao and Princess Yu Yan. There were only a few days left. In Marquis Xing's mansion of the kingdom of Dongzong, old madam looked at the palace nanny in front of her in disbelief. She struggled to stay upright and asked, Is this the Empress's idea? Yes, it's the Empress and the Empress Dowager's idea, the nanny said expressionlessly. Old madam's hands became weak and she almost fell. Nanny Yu hurried forward to support her. Only after Nanny Yu gave her a hand did she manage to support her. Is it because of Infanta Yuan An or Princess Chin? Old madam asked unwillingly. Infanta Yuan An is seriously injured. Princess Chin is just a junior and a married junior. I heard that the relationship between Princess Chen and Marquis Xing's mansion is not good. The palace nanny still said expressionlessly, but she did not say who it was or who caused it. It seemed that both of them had their reasons. Old madam pointed at her with trembling fingers. Old madam, you should thank the Empress. Nanny Yu reminded her in a low voice anxiously. The Empress's idea was also the Empress Dowager's idea. Even if there was no imperial edict, it was equivalent to an imperial edict, and no one could refuse it. Thank you for your kindness, Empress. But is there a time limit? Old madam gritted her teeth and had to swallow her anger. She suppressed the sweetness in her throat and slowly became sober. Of course, she could not contradict the Empress's idea at this time. The Empress only said that old madam should rest in peace. The palace nanny said, Yes, I know. Old madam said. The nanny in the imperial palace bowed to old madam and left. Nanny Yu hurriedly chased after her and caught up with her at the door. She handed a pouch to Nanny Yu with a smile and said modestly, Just now, old madam was so surprised that she forgot some etiquette. Please forgive her. When Nanny she came before, she said that old madam was too hot-tempered and straightforward. Nanny Yu smiled and said, Nanny she took the pouch and pinched it. When she felt the weight in the pouch, she finally showed a smile and said, Nanny, you're too polite. Old madam is also confused. Who would have thought that the elders would suffer losses in this kind of thing? Nanny she is the favorite of the Empress, so she will definitely intercede for old madam. Nanny she was the Empress's confidant, while she was just an ordinary nanny. The people in the palace dared not make a mistake between them. Since old madam had a good relationship with Nanny she, it would be bad to offend her, not to mention that such a big pouch was sent to her. She had to accept this favor. When can old madam come back? Seeing that the person in front of her was moved after she mentioned Nanny, Nanny, you knew that she was right, so she immediately lowered her voice and asked for advice. What she said before was really not convincing, so she had to ask more bluntly on behalf of old madam. Infanta Yuan and was hurt. Not only did no one in your mansion come out to apologize, but you also forced Princess Qin to enter the palace. Princess Qin is a junior and a married junior. Marquis Xing's mansion didn't do anything to her before, but when something happened, they forced her one after another. Now Prince Qin is not here, and Princess Qin is protected by the Empress Dowager. Nanny lowered her voice and said one sentence after another. These words seemed to have nothing to do with each other, but when she thought about it carefully, the key points were connected. After thinking about it carefully, Nanny Yu's eyes lit up. The key point is Princess Qin? I don't know about this. The palace, Nanny said with a smile. Since Nanny Yu understood, she could go back. Seeing that she was about to leave, Nanny Yu stopped her and asked the most important question, Nanny, when can old madam come back? Chapter 1037. When can she come back? This was Nanny Yu's most important question. Old madam always cared about herself. Well, if there is a happy event, she should be able to come back. After all, the masters in the mansion are too young and inexperienced, and the Empress has issued a clear decree. The nanny in the palace wanted to make friends with Nanny Shi after taking benefits. After thinking for a while, she still told the truth that didn't seem to be the truth. After saying that, she turned around and left, ignoring Nanny Yu. She had said so much. For the people in the palace, it was a big truth. If she continued to say it, it would be terrible. After thinking about this sentence, Nanny Yu's eyes lit up and she immediately turned around and went into the room happily. In the room, old madam sat on the bed with a gloomy face. Old madam, don't worry. It's the Empress Dowager's birthday soon. You can come back then. You just need to live outside for a few days to have some peace. The Yuhui nunnery is really quiet. Nanny Yu came in and said with a smile, I asked just now, and the palace should have the same idea. It's because Princess Qin was forced to come forward, which annoyed the Empress in the palace. It's her again. Old madam patted the quilt angrily and said, I know she is a scourge. Old madam, please be careful. Nanny Yu hurriedly stopped her. There were many servants in the room just now, although they all stood aside with their heads bowed. Old madam said coldly. The servant girls bowed their heads and left. What else did she say? After everyone left, old madam asked with a livid face. She never expected that she would be the one who failed to make peace with the Empress in the end. Nanny Yu only said that if there is a happy event, you can come back. After all, there is no elder in the mansion who can manage the affairs of the backyard well. If something goes wrong, it will not be good. Nanny Yu hurriedly said. Old madam immediately understood what she meant. What could be better than the birthday of the Empress Dowager? The birthday of the Empress Dowager was near. Thinking of this, his heart relaxed a little, and the gloominess on his face dissipated a lot. If that was the case, then it would indeed not be long. Since her safety was not a big problem, old madam thought about the previous matter again. Who on earth told on me? I can't tell. It seems to be related to Infanta Yuan and Princess Qin. She also said that Prince Qin is not in the capital city, so Empress Dowager takes special care of Princess Qin. Nanny Yu shook her head and said, I think it was Infanta Yuan who went to the Imperial Palace to complain, and then Princess Qin also went to the Imperial Palace to plead for mercy. Then something must have happened that made the Empress vent her anger on you. What exactly happened in the palace was not something that a servant like her could know. She could only rely on what the nanny in the palace had said and some of her own guesses. She's so useless. I asked her to do such a small thing, but she didn't do it well. Old madam patted the edge of the bed hard. Of course, she was talking about Xiao Wanru. Old madam, what should we do now? Nanny Yu asked. Ask someone to prepare incense and candles first. Tell them that I'm going to the Yuhui nunnery to pray for the affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion for a period of time. Old madam said. Since the Empress did not send an imperial edict, It meant that she had given her face. Even if she was not feeling well at this time, she had to get up immediately. Go to inform Master Ho and ask him to take care of the mansion. Don't be distracted anymore. He should take care of the affairs in the mansion first. As for Huan, old Madam paused for a moment and said, ask Huan to swallow his anger and stop making trouble. We'll talk about it when there's a chance in the future. When her eldest granddaughter married into the prince's mansion and became the princess and then the empress, there would be plenty of opportunities to take revenge in the future. But now it was not the best time. I'll go and tell Master Ho now, Nanny, you said. It was better for her to pass on this kind of message, in case the little servant girls did not understand the meaning and passed on the wrong message. Wang Xingshue's matter became less important because of Wang Xingshue's death. Nothing happened to Yan Shi and the servant girl who jumped off the building. It was only Wang Xingxue who had an accident. Everything was focused on the dead Wang Xingxue. As for the others, they were less responsible. Even Ning Kaixian was waiting for the day to be released from prison. She thought that everything was caused by Wang Xingxue. No matter what the reason was, he was the one who did it. Now that he was dead, what else could they do? It was not a good idea to keep Ning Kaixian an accomplice. As for Ning Xueqing, she was even more innocent. She didn't know anything at all. She was innocent. At most, she would be locked up for a few more days. If they couldn't find out who poisoned Wang Xingxue, she would be released first. At least she had nothing to do with the original matter. No one expected that Ning Xueqing, who seemed to have no connection with Wang Xingxue, would suddenly make a confession. She said that there had always been someone behind Wang Xingxue. She was a concubine, so it was impossible for Wang Xingxue to tell her everything. But she vaguely knew that there was someone behind Wang Xingxue. She said that she saw a stack of large silver notes in Wang Xingxue's hand, which were impossible for Wang Xingxue to get at all. The officials of the Ministry of Justice had been investigating the person behind Wang Xingxue. When they heard Ning Xueqing's words, they immediately became energetic. They went to the Wang's mansion to search it and found a lot of large silver notes. Everyone knew that Wang Xingxue was a poor man. How could he have so many silver notes? Besides, it would be terrible if they continued to investigate the relationship. The minister of the Ministry of Justice sorted out the evidence in his hand and hurried to see the emperor. The emperor was furious in the Imperial study. He called Prince Zhou over and scolded him before driving him out. When Prince Zhou went out, his head was still bleeding. At first glance, it was obvious that it was smashed by the emperor. When Prince Zhou arrived at the empress's Fengyi palace, the empress immediately summoned an imperial physician, and there was another panic. Everyone in the palace felt insecure and was afraid of causing trouble. Even their voices were a little lower. Both the emperor's servants and the empress's servants were very careful. Prince Zhou had angered the emperor and made him very angry. The minister of the Ministry of Justice left after Prince Zhou left. When he walked out of the door of the imperial study, he was sweating all over his head. It was a quarrel between the father and the son. For an official like him, it was a quarrel between the emperor and the minister. No matter which one it was fatal for Prince Zhou. The minister of the Ministry of Justice shook his head helplessly. Prince Zhou's hand really stretched a little too far. Although the silver notes were not pointed directly at Prince Zhou, they were pointed at a steward of Prince Zhou's mansion, who was Prince Zhou, the Minister of Justice's personal steward. The Ministry of Justice had been investigating the poisoning of Wang Xingxue before, focusing on the time when the incident happened, and did not investigate it before. Now with the silver notes, they investigated it again according to the time shown on the silver notes, and they were almost right. The steward of Prince Zhou gave Wang Xingxue a sum of money. Although nothing happened after that, and Wang Xingxue didn't seem to be promising, the poisoning of Wang Xingxue this time seemed to have something to do with Prince Zhou. Of course, the Ministry of Justice also vaguely found that it had something to do with Xiao Jing of Marquis Xing originally. Xiao Jing of Marquis Xing was the most related person, but now Prince Zhou, who had the silver notes as evidence, became the most related person. The Ministry of Justice did not dare to investigate further, so the minister of the Ministry of Justice cleaned up all the evidence and sent it to the emperor for the emperor to make a decision. Prince Zhou was the legitimate son of the central palace and had a noble status. It was impossible for him to die for an insignificant person like Wang Xingxue. It depended on the emperor's opinion. If the emperor said that he would investigate it, it meant that Prince Zhou could no longer be in the central palace, and the Ministry of Justice could continue to investigate it. But if the emperor did not allow it, it meant that Prince Zhou might be the one. It was impossible for a crown prince to bear such a title. At present, it seemed that the emperor still had some ideas about Prince Zhou, so he ordered that there was no need to investigate it anymore. The matter of Wang Xingxue would be stopped, and everything would be pushed to Wang Xingxue. As for the others, they were just women and they could be released. After thinking it through, the minister of the Ministry of Justice shook his head and strode out of the palace. He was still not very optimistic about Prince Zhou. Compared with Prince Zhou was much calmer and composed. Of course, it was not easy to deal with Wang Xingxue's matter. The emperor only said that one case would end here, but it was not appropriate to end it at this time. Fortunately, there was still the release of the results. The minister of the Ministry of Justice thought that it would be better to put it on the same day as the release of the results, so that these scholars would not pay attention to Wang Xingxue's matter. Wang Xingxue's matter was a big deal, because it was related to the affairs of all the scholars in the world. Now they were waiting for the release of the results. Even a small matter became a big deal, and it became the most discussed thing among the scholars waiting for the results. At present, the case had been solved quite quickly, and Wang Xingxue had taken all the blame. Wang Xingxue had set up such a trap because he was jealous of Yanxi. But now Wang Xingxue was dead in prison. Was this the end of the matter? The scholars were not convinced, and felt that there was an inside story behind it. Fortunately, the results were released at this time. While everyone was paying attention to their own rankings, they found that Child Yen had actually passed the examination. Not only did he pass the examination, but he was also ranked higher than others. It was a great thing for Child Yen to see the sunrise after the clouds parted. It was a great thing to see the final ranking on the last day of the palace examination. Some people failed the examination and sighed. Some people passed the examination and called their friends happily. They did not pay so much attention to Yanxi's matter. They were busy with their own affairs, not to mention others' affairs. Moreover, it was Wang Xingxue who made trouble in Yanxi's matter. Now that he was dead, he could not make trouble anymore. Besides, it was said that he committed suicide. He should have known that he had committed an unforgivable crime, so he did that. Thinking of this, no one paid attention to this matter. Ning Xueqing came out of the prison and squinted at the long-lost sunshine in front of her. Then she turned her head with an unclear look and looked at Ning Kaixian on the other side. Ning Kaixian was not released because she was an accomplice. Chapter 1038. Ning Kaixian was an accomplice. She was spared the death penalty, but she would inevitably be punished. Chong Jun was sent to the border for 3 years. Coincidentally, the two of them met in front of the prison. However, one was released, while the other was going to be sent to prison. Big sister. Ning Xueqing came over and glanced at Ning Kaixian with a faint smile. Ning Kaixian looked very embarrassed. Her hair was still as messy as when she scratched it, and there were still scratches on her face. She looked about 10 years older than before. Chong Jun was sent to the border. For a weak woman like her, it was almost impossible for her to survive. Ning Xueqing, are you satisfied? Ning Kaixian looked at Ning Xueqing with hatred and gnashed her teeth. I'm satisfied? Big sister, your words are really interesting. Why should I be satisfied? Did I ask you to have an affair with Wang Xingxue shamelessly? Did I ask you to help Wang Xingxue hurt people? Did I ask you to do that kind of vicious thing? Ning Xueqing sneered. You bitch. Ning Kaixian cursed with a livid face. It's not up to you to decide whether I'm a bitch or not. Big sister, as a matter of fact, you are the real bitch in the future. Ning Xueqing glanced at the two fierce-looking yamen runners maliciously and said, it was such a long journey, and there were only 2 yamen runners. It was really hard to say what had happened. Big brothers, please take care of my big sister along the way. Ning Xueqing bowed sideways to the two Yamen runners. If she had enough money, she even wanted to bribe the two Yamen runners and ask them to torture Ning Kaixian along the way. She hated Ning Kaixian. If it were not for her, she would not have fallen into such a situation. Although Wang Xingxue was not good, he was her husband, and he had always promised to marry her if he had the chance. She was also waiting for Wang Xingxue's good fortune, but she did not expect that Wang Xingxue would be involved in this matter. It must be Ning Caixian's idea. Ning Kaixian must have seduced Wang Xingxue. Ning Xueqing was caught inexplicably. If she hadn't saved herself, she would have been locked up again. As long as she thought of this, Ning Xueqing gnashed her teeth with hatred. How could she let Ning Kaixian go? You bitch, how dare you! Ning Kaixian also felt that the situation was not good and cursed loudly. Pa! She was slapped hard in the face by a bailiff. He looked at her with a crooked eye. A criminal dares to be so arrogant? Why don't you take a look at yourself first? After saying that, he spat on the ground. This slut needs to be taught a lesson. I hope that the two of you will take the trouble to teach her along the way. When I return in the future, I will definitely send you a generous gift. Ning Xueqing smiled. Hearing that there were still benefits to be gained, the two bailiffs nodded repeatedly and pulled Ning Kaixian away. Ning Xueqing narrowed her eyes and smiled. Ning Kaixian would never have a chance to come back this time, and she might not even be able to keep her life. She should fall into that kind of dirty and cheap place. She deserved it for letting this bitch steal her man. Fu. Second Mississippi, a timid voice came from behind. Ning Xueqing turned around and saw Dongxing's face. What's the matter, concubine Dong? Ning Xueqing said with a sarcastic smile. Dongxing had also been taken to the Ministry of Justice for questioning. Now that Wang Xingxue was dead, as a concubine with no confidence, she did not dare to go against Ning Xueqing anymore. Second Miss, I dare not do it again. Dongxing threw herself in front of Ning Xueqing and cried loudly. Second Miss, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. I was blinded and didn't see how good Second Miss is. I'm sorry for making Second Miss feel wronged. Don't slap me. If I feel distressed when I see you, what if I come to see you at night? Ning Xueqing snorted coldly. Dongxing trembled with fear and hurriedly stopped. Second Miss, I have always been your servant girl. It was your idea at the beginning. Later, although I became a concubine, I had no choice. I didn't mean to make things difficult for you. The internal affairs and money of Prince Yu's mansion were all in Ning Xueqing's hands. At present, as a concubine who was nothing, she had to rely on Ning Xueqing if she wanted to survive. Well, it's all over. Get up. We'll live well as before. Since young master is gone, there's no need for us to quarrel. Hearing that she mentioned the past, Ning Xueqing's face changed slightly. She reached out to pull her up and said in a kind tone. Second Miss. Dongxing was so moved that she couldn't even speak. Well, let's go back first. We still have to deal with the affairs of Prince Yu's mansion. It's such a big mansion, but we don't even have a master here. I'm afraid it's already a mess. Ning Xueqing said. Second Miss, don't worry. I will definitely help you. The master in the mansion has always been Second Mrs. I'm just a servant girl. Even my life belongs to Second Mississippi. How can I have any other thoughts? Dongxing expressed her loyalty. In fact, she was very loyal at the beginning. But in the past 3 years, she had been accompanying Wang Xingxue, so how could she not have other thoughts? But at this time, even if she had other thoughts, she had to put them away. Wang Xingxue was dead. She had no one to rely on and could only rely on Ning Xueqing. Her slave contract was still in Ning Xueqing's hands. In the past, out of consideration for Wang Xingxue, Ning Xueqing would not really sell her. But now, if she was not sensible, Ning Xueqing would definitely not keep her and would even sell her to the dirtiest place. After following Ning Xueqing for so many years, how could Dongxing not know Ning Xueqing's temperament? She also understood that she had to listen to Ning Xueqing at this time. Of course, what had happened in the past was also something that Ning Xueqing did not want others to know. This was also the only thing that Dongxing could control Ning Xueqing with. Wang Xingxue was gone, but Princess Chen was still there. Moreover, she was not the fifth Miss Xiao who had been plotted against at that time. For this reason, Dongxing felt that Ning Xueqing would not really punish her. Well, let's go back to the mansion. Ning Xueqing narrowed her eyes, looked at Dongxing, and then looked at the back of Ning Kaixian, who was being pulled away, and said. Dongxing also thought of the scene just now, and her face suddenly turned pale. She hurriedly lowered her head and respectfully performed her duty as a servant girl. She said in an extremely humble manner, "Second miss, please go first. I'll follow you." Ning Xueqing did not say anything this time. She glanced at Dongxing, turned around, and walked out. She did not want to stay at all. She had to go back to the mansion to deal with the affairs left by Wang Xingxue. As for other things, she would deal with them later. Wang Xingxue's mansion was indeed in a mess. Several masters had been arrested, and the servants in the mansion had either left or fled. There were only a few people left. Even those who were left were scrambling to take things in the mansion. When Ning Xueqing came in, she saw two servants fighting over a porcelain bottle. Seeing her come in, they ignored them. The news of Wang Xingxue's death had spread out, and the servants in the mansion no longer cared about it. Ning Xueqing was powerful, but she was just a concubine without any foundation. After Wang Xingxue's death, in the eyes of the servants, she was no different from Dongxing. Seeing Ning Xueqing's livid face, Dongxing stepped forward to stand in front of her and said angrily, "How dare you? Don't you see that madam is here? How dare you? Is there a madam here? Since when does a concubine regard herself as a madam?" A family member glanced at Ning Xueqing and Dongxing sarcastically, ignored them, and continued to fight with the other servant. He did not take them seriously at all and even bumped into them while fighting. He knocked Ning Xueqing to the ground and stepped on the corner of her skirt to fight. All the servants in the mansion were basically newly appointed. Few of them were loyal. Even if they were loyal, they were called back by their families because of the news of Wang Xingxue's death. Then there was no hope for the whole Wang's mansion. "How dare you!" Ning Xueqing was kicked in the foot and felt pain, so she shouted angrily. However, no one paid attention to her anger anymore. The two servants were still fighting, and they were still stepping on the corner of her skirt. When Dongxing came to help Ning Xueqing up, she was also heavily knocked out, and both of them fell to the ground. "Come on, search everything here." A yamen runner came in with a few people and said coldly, without looking at the two servants who were fighting and Ning Xueqing who had fallen to the ground. Immediately, several yamen runners rushed in and directly knocked the two servants to the ground. Ning Xueqing helped Dongxing to stand up and asked anxiously, Who are you?" "We are from the Ministry of Justice, and we are here to search Wang Xingxue's property. Wang Xingxue's death sentence is unavoidable, and all his property will be confiscated," the leading yamen runner said coldly. "No, it's not like this, but it looks like this," Ning Xueqing said with her eyes wide open in panic. She still wanted to consolidate the things in this mansion, which would be very profitable in the future. "What else is it if it's not like this? Do you want to occupy everything of the criminal and be punished with the criminal?" the yamen runner asked. Seeing that the situation was not good, the two servants did not dare to covet these things anymore, and turned to run out. "No, Xiao Baolin said, no," Ning Xueqing said incoherently. She really did not expect such a result. "What nonsense are you talking about? Drive the irrelevant people out," the leading yamen runner said impatiently. "No, but..." Ning Xueqing still wanted to say something, but she had been pushed out by the two yamen runners. She took a few steps back and almost fell on the steps outside. Several passers-by saw it and began to talk about it. Wang Xingxue had made a big scene before, and many people knew about it. It was not surprising that all his property had been confiscated. Ning Xueqing was about to rush up, but Dongxing stopped her and said with tears in her eyes, "Second miss, don't go in again. It's useless, really useless." Dongxing was really afraid at this time. She was afraid that Ning Xueqing would really rush up. If Ning Xueqing died, she would not be able to recover. At this time, she was really afraid that Ning Xueqing would have an accident. Ning Xueqing stopped, looked at the door with cold and vicious eyes, gnashed her teeth, and said, "Xiao Yinru, I won't let you off." Her voice was so low that it almost overflowed through her teeth. How could she believe what Xiao Yinru sent? But she also knew that no one would believe her if she told the truth now. Xiao Yinru, the person she hated the most at the moment. Chapter 1039. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail signs /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. For the people in the capital city, what happened in Wang Xingshue's school was just a passing cloud. No one would care about it. Since Wang Xingxue was dead, this matter was over. Naturally, no one would pay attention to Ning Caishien's exile, nor would they care about Ning Xueqing's homelessness. As for the deal between Ning Xueqing and Xiao Yenru, no one would know. No one thought that Ning Xueqing would reveal that there was someone behind Wang Xingxue. This matter was covered up by some people with ulterior motives and did not cause any disturbance. Only some big aristocratic families had some vague news and knew that Wang Xingxue's death seemed to have something to do with Prince Zhou. The news that Prince Zhou's head had been smashed by the emperor also spread silently among the aristocratic families and powerful ministers. Yan Shi became the third Tanhua scholar in this circle. On the day when the Zhuangyuan, Bang Yan, and Tanhua scholar were parading in the street on horseback, Xiao Wanru also got up early and was woken up by several servant girls. Prince Chen's mansion also booked a private room in a tea house along the road. Today, there were a lot of people who booked private rooms. Almost all the private rooms in restaurants and tea houses along the way were booked. Several servant girls were also full of curiosity. 3 years ago, when they were in the Yuhui nunnery, they did not see that year's parade on horseback. 3 years later, they finally had such an opportunity to see such a grand event, so the servant girls were very attentive. Not only the servant girls, but Zhang Qilan also made an appointment with Xiao Wanru. It was also she who asked Xiao Wanru to book a private room. She would bring Luo Xiaowan over to join in the fun. Xiao Wanru was also in a good mood. Chu Luchen had replied that he was coming back. Calculating the time, it should be time for him to return. If he returned quickly, he could catch the Empress Dowager's birthday. This made Xiao Wanru feel inexplicably at ease. In the last life, something happened on the Empress Dowager's birthday. In this life, although she was prepared, she was still a little uncertain. It was best for Chu Luchen to come back. After all, he was the only one who could really talk at that time. As for the matter of Princess Yu Tao or Princess Yu Yen, Chu Luchen also mentioned it a little, but did not go into detail. He only told Xiao Wanru to rest assured that no matter which country's princess wanted to unite by marriage with the kingdom of Dongcang, it had nothing to do with him. He was in poor health, so he could not marry many concubines. He had the heart to guard Xiao Wanru, but he could not. Xiao Wanru blushed when she read the letter. After they got married, this man became more and more shameless. He even said such words in a righteous way, as if it was a great thing to be helpless. Thinking of how he often hugged her and was moved, but when he forcefully suppressed it, she became more and more shy. Could this person really be more shameless? He had such a gentle and handsome face, but he did such a shameless thing. Xiao Wanru felt ashamed just by looking at him. Under the teasing gazes of the maids, she folded the letter and put it beside her pillow. Unable to fall asleep in the middle of the night, she took it out and read it several times with a red face. She missed him very much. In the past, when he was not around, she would do everything alone, force herself to be strong, and never expect marriage. Now there was such a person protecting her, which slowly warmed her cold heart. She didn't know when he had already appeared in her heart. It was still early when she arrived at the tea house. Zhang Qilan and Luo Xiaowan had not arrived yet. Xiao Wanru followed the waiter up the stairs, but at the corner, she saw a familiar figure. She frowned slightly. Did he also come to watch this triennial event? After entering the private room, the waiters served the water and left. Yu Jie and Chu Lu took the tea brought from the mansion and soaked it in water. Xiao Wanru looked at the layout of the private room and sat down. It was a very simple square table. She sat by the window. Below her was a street, which was the street for the parade on horseback. The street was very wide and she could see it clearly all the way. The private room was good. When the Zhuangyuan, Bangyan, and Tanhua came over, she could see it clearly. She stood by the window and looked. There were already a lot of people on the street. Many people were waiting below, waiting to see how these young talents were in high spirits. Princess Chen actually came earlier than us. Zhang Qilan came in with Luo Xiaowan. Seeing that Xiao Wenru was already there, she couldn't help laughing. She came over and bowed to Xiao Wenru, then sat down. After Xiao Wenru poured tea for the two of them, she smiled and pushed it in front of them. Didn't you say that you came earlier than me? It was supposed to be earlier, but my mother found out before I went out and nagged me for a long time. Later, Xiaowan came over and my mother let me go. Zhang Qilan looked aggrieved and said pitifully. Seeing her aggrieved and pitiful look, Xiao Wenru couldn't help laughing. She gently covered the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. Then you have to thank Sister Xiaowan. I have to thank Xiaowan. If it weren't for her, my mother would not have let me out, but if it were her. Zhang Qilan said meaningfully. Luo Xiaowan blushed and patted her on the shoulder. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not talking nonsense. Of course it's true, Zhang Qilan said with a righteous smile. Luo Xiaowan's face became redder and redder. She held the handkerchief and didn't know what to do. Xiao Wenru looked at this and then at that and laughed. Is there something I don't know happening? It seems to be a good thing. Of course it's a good thing, Zhang Qilan said. Don't talk nonsense. It's not settled yet. Luo Xiaowan was anxious and said with a red face. Seeing her like this, Zhang Qilan didn't say anything more. She just pouted at Xiao Wenru, hinting for her to look at Luo Xiaowan's expression. Xiao Wenru pursed her lips and smiled. She no longer asked. She smiled and pushed the teacups on the table in front of the two of them. This tea is good. Have a taste. Zhang Qilan took a sip and her eyes immediately lit up. She looked at the teacup in her hand and praised, Good tea, it's really good tea. I didn't expect such good tea in an ordinary tea house. Why didn't you give me such good tea when I came before? Is it because the tea house is big and bullied? Do you think it's good? Xiao Wenru asked with a smile. Hearing what the two of them said, Luo Xiaowan took a sip and praised repeatedly, This tea is really good, and it has a faint floral fragrance. It smells better than ordinary tea and tastes better. Come on, call the waiter and ask him why he didn't give me such good tea before. Zhang Qilan said. The servant girl behind her was about to go out. Xiao Wenru smiled and said nothing, but Yu Jie couldn't bear it anymore. Miss Zhang, this tea was brought from our mansion, not from this tea house. It's not from here? Zhang Qilan blinked and took another sip. She praised repeatedly and then looked at Xiao Wenru. Princess Chen's tea is really good. Where did it come from? I haven't drunk such good tea before. Is it a new tribute from the palace this year? The servant girl stepped back and stood behind her again, looking at Xiao Wenru with a smile. Do you think this tea is a tribute? Xiao Wenru asked with a smile. Zhang Qilan took another sip and shook her head. It doesn't feel like it. What doesn't it look like? Xiao Wenru asked again. Luo Xiaowan also took a sip and thought for a while. This kind of fragrance shouldn't be liked by men. The emperor's tribute tea shouldn't have such a flowery taste. Whether it was Luo Xiaowan or Zhang Qilan, they had drunk a lot of tribute tea from the palace, but they had never drunk such a taste. This is sent from the Su country. It is said that it is a kind of tea that the local women of the Su country like, but it is not among the tributes. It is only for women. In fact, the most outstanding thing here is not the tea, but the fragrance mixed with the tea. Xiao Wenru smiled slightly and said with her eyes slightly raised. Zhang Qilan nodded again and again. Yes, that's the reason, but the fragrance of the flowers and the taste of the tea are not like ordinary scented tea. There are no flowers right now, but the fragrance seems to be soaked into the taste of the tea, as if it is natural. I don't know how the taste of the tea and the taste of the flowers are mixed so well. This should be an autocratic method of the Su country. Xiao Wenru said. That's not right. How did this tea from the Su country come to you? Could it be sent by Prince Qin on purpose? Zhang Qilan teased. Xiao Wenru coughed in a low voice and said, Some were indeed sent with the Empress Dowager's letter before. This was given to me by the Empress Dowager. You mean that Prince Qin gave it to the Empress Dowager, but not to you? Zhang Qilan blinked, lowered her voice and asked with a smile. The meaning of teasing was obvious. Luo Shaowan, who was on the side, couldn't help laughing. Of course I gave it to the Empress Dowager, so I got my tea. Xiao Wanru nodded and admitted it seriously. However, the smile in her watery eyes made her eyes look more charming, which matched with her delicate facial features. She was elegant with a seductive charm. Zhang Qilan's heart skipped a beat. Although there was still a smile on her face, the smile in her eyes slowly faded. There was something in her heart. She originally thought that she didn't care, but now she inexplicably thought of it and felt very uncomfortable. What's wrong? Sensing that Zhang Qilan's smile was forced, Xiao Wanru asked with concern. I'm fine. I just remembered what my mother said to me before. Alas, people who don't know will think that I'm not her biological daughter. Zhang Qilan's face was bitter and she said helplessly, she always asks me to pay attention to this and that. This is not allowed and that is not allowed. She said it as if I'm willing to marry her. If it's always like this, how can I live? Her marriage with Prince Yu was coming, and it was even more difficult for her to go out now. Except here, almost all diplomatic activities were restricted. Every time she thought of this, Zhang Qilan felt depressed. In fact, she just wanted to wander around freely and didn't want to do anything out of line, but her mother didn't allow it. It was as if it was a big thing for her to go out of line. In the past few days, there was another thing that was pressing on her heart. She thought that she wouldn't believe it, but now that she saw Xiao Wanru, she felt relieved, which made her feel at a loss. Chapter 1040. Cheers suddenly came from the street outside the window. They all stood in front of the window and looked out. At this time, no one cared about the girls who opened the window to watch the fun openly. Originally, this was not the time to be harsh. Compared to opening the window to watch the fun, more women threw handkerchiefs, flowers, sachets, and other small things down. Some were even more excited and directly threw down the hair ornaments that were attached to their hair. Along the way, there were thunderous cheers. The most excited ones were the girls. They were very restrained in the past, but at this time, they were very excited. The top scorer of this round was a middle-aged man, who looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He didn't look young either, but the third place made many girls scream again and again. Yan Shi was the youngest of the three, and also the best-looking one. He seemed to be in high spirits and was very eye-catching. Although there were two more top scorers and top scorers who were ranked above him, he was the one who received the most attention. Xiao Wanru's eyes also fell on Yan Shi, and she couldn't help but sigh with emotion. In the last life, the two of them had lost their reputation at this time. Even though she was a girl, she suffered more losses and was criticized by thousands of people. Yan Shi didn't get any better and was directly banished. Now, the fate of the two of them had changed. Yan Shi seemed to sense Xiao Wanru's gaze and happened to look up. Their eyes met silently, and Yan Shi directly cupped his hands to the horse with gratitude in his eyes. If it weren't for Xiao Wanru's reminder, he might still be in prison. For this, he was very grateful to Xiao Wanru. If it weren't for the fact that Xiao Wanru was now Princess Qin, it would be inconvenient for him to come to thank her. Xiao Wanru smiled slightly and didn't do anything else. Princess Qin, is this third place saluting you? Zhang Qilan looked back at Xiao Wanru curiously and asked. She felt that the third place's gaze turned here, but when she looked back, she saw that Xiao Wanru didn't react, so she couldn't figure it out for a while. Maybe he saw us? Did he just now? I was looking at the top scorers in front of me just now, so I didn't notice this third place. Xiao Wanru said gracefully and turned her eyes back to Yan Shi. At this time, Yan Shi had turned her eyes back to the passers-by in front of the horse and smiled at them. I thought he was looking at Princess Qin. Zhang Qilan laughed. Luo Shaowan was stunned and looked at Xiao Wanru. Did the Tanhua prince just now look at Princess Qin? Just now, she also noticed that the Tanhua man was looking at her. She originally thought that the Tanhua man was looking at her, but when she looked at him, she found that he was looking behind her. I don't know. Did Tanhua see me just now? Maybe he met me when I lived in Marquis Xing's mansion, Xiao Wanru said indifferently. She didn't want anyone to know about what happened between her and Yan Shi. In his previous life, the two of them could be said to have become friends. It was just that this feeling was very mysterious. No one would believe it even if he said it out loud. Instead, it made people feel suspicious. The two of them took a different path from the previous life. In this life, there would be no other involvement. Maybe he met Princess Qin in Marquis Xing's mansion. I heard that Child Yin used to live in Marquis Xing's mansion, so he moved out recently. Luo Xiaowan smiled and thought of this reason. Because he had met Xiao Wanru and happened to see her, he specially bowed to her. After all, Xiao Wanru was now Princess Qin. No matter where Yan Shi saw her, he should bow to her. I was wondering why he suddenly bowed to her. It turns out to be because of this reason. Zhang Qilan nodded repeatedly and thought it made sense. Child Yen moved out of Marquis Xing's mansion? Xiao Wanru said in surprise. She really didn't know about this. Recently, I heard that there are a lot of things in Marquis Xing's mansion. Child Yen has passed the Imperial examination, so it is not convenient for him to live there all the time. Yan's mansion bought a house in the capital city for Child Yen, and now he has moved there, Luo Xiaowan said softly. But after saying this, she suddenly came to her senses and her face turned red. Zhang Qilan put her head in front of Luo Xiaowan and said proudly, "You said it was nothing. Look, you already know it like this, but you said it was nothing." Xiao Wanru looked at the two of them with a smile. What they said when they came in made her feel that Luo Xiaowan should reconsider the marriage. At present, it seemed that they were still talking about Yan Shi, which was really surprising, but also seemed to be expected. Luo Xiaowan's matter had been so serious. Now it was said that it had been resolved, but it was estimated that she would not be able to marry into several aristocratic families in the capital city. If she married outside, young Madame of Mark Yangtzu, who doted on her daughter, would definitely not agree. It was indeed the best way to find a son-in-law. Yan Shi was also the most outstanding one in this year. Although she had some connection with Marquis Xing's mansion before, it was gone now. Yan Shi's parents were not around. If she married into Marquis Xing's mansion, they would be a young couple. It was the best for Luo Xiaowan, who had always been weak. What nonsense are you talking about? It's nothing. Luo Xiaowan blushed and could hardly raise her head. My mother also said that I should be as steady as you. She said that you were also discussing marriage and asked me to learn from you. Look, I'm pretending in such a short time. Zhang Qilan made a fuss and said with a smile. Luo Xiaowan was so shy that she couldn't even speak. Well, don't make fun of Sister Xiaowan. You are going to get married soon. Xiao Wanru persuaded her with a smile. She turned around and pulled her to look down. The bustle below had already moved forward, and there were more people following along the way. When you get married, there will be more people watching. At that time, Sister Xiaowan and I will also book a private room and watch your sedan chair go there. What's so interesting about my bustle? It's the same thing. Haven't you experienced it yourself? Zhang Qilan said weakly. His words changed the topic that he had just been talking about. After watching the bustle, the three of them returned to their seats. Luo Xiaowan didn't care about her blushing shyness and asked with concern, Qilan, is there anything wrong? I heard that Prince Yu is handsome. Although he is a little arrogant, he is a good person. Yes, he is very good. I haven't married yet, and a side concubine is waiting for me. Zhang Qilan sighed and her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru with envy. Princess Qin is still the best. You have been married for so long, but you are still alone. I heard that Prince Qin has no intention of taking another side concubine. When the marriage was bestowed, it was also Prince Qin who refused the side concubine. One side concubine. Originally, the princes had such a configuration in the draft. Except for the youngest Prince Xian, who did not choose, the others should be like this, but only Prince Qin refused. In fact, Zhang Qilan heard that Prince Qin had the most side concubines. It was said that the Empress Dowager and the Emperor wanted to find a few more backers for this sick and weak highness. Of course, it was not a backer. They just wanted this highness to live a good life in the future. The so-called backer was Zhang Qilan's own idea. Now that she thought about it, how could a person like Prince Qin rely on the power of his wife's family? This trip to the Sioux state was something that no one had expected. Her father also said that Prince Chen was now in good health and was no longer as sick and weak as others imagined. Otherwise, he would not have gone on such a trip. With the importance that the Empress Dowager attached to Prince Chen, if he was really sick and weak, she would not let him go on a trip, not even with him. Not long after the princess entered the door, the side concubine would enter the door. As long as she thought of this, Zhang Qilan felt that she could not be happy. I heard that Prince Yu is a good person. You entered the door first as the princess. Are you still worried about this? Xiao Wanru asked with a smile and raised her watery eyes slightly. Zhang Qilan did not look like someone who cared about this. The title of princess and side concubine was not new. There had been such a saying for a long time. She did not say anything at the beginning, but now she was filled with emotion. Marry him and see, Zhang Qilan said with a bitter smile. She did not have the shyness of a newly married woman. There were some things that she really could not decide, and there was no way for her to decide. She stood up and said with flagging interest, "Let's go. The top scorer is gone. We have nothing to see. Let's go back." Why so early? Every time you come out, don't you want to have fun before leaving? Xiao Wanru was stunned. Zhang Qilan's situation today did not seem right. Before I went out, my mother repeatedly told me not to play too much. She said that I would come back after watching. After all, I'm about to get married. If Xiaowan hadn't come to find me, my mother wouldn't have let me go out no matter what. Zhang Qilan said helplessly. She stretched out her hand to touch her forehead and then looked sideways at Xiao Wanru. Among us, only Princess Qin is married. Can you tell me about marriage? Don't say those high-sounding words. I want to hear the truth. Hear the truth? What kind of truth? Xiao Wanru's long eyelashes fluttered and she asked with a smile. Of course, I want to hear you tell me about marrying into the royal family. How does Prince Qin treat you? How does the Empress and the Empress Dowager treat you? What is the temperament of the S in the harem? Zhang Qilan sighed deeply, and her beautiful face wrinkled. Just thinking about how there are so many relationships to deal with in the future, I can't lift my spirits, and I don't feel happy at all. She couldn't be happy, but there were a lot of things to worry about. There was more than one thing, and there were even many things that she couldn't say. She didn't care so much at first, but she suddenly became concerned. Her father was right. She would be Princess Yu in the future, and she would have to face many things. These were things that she couldn't escape. She couldn't avoid it, and she couldn't avoid it anymore. Then she had to catch up. The Empress and the Empress Dowager are very easy to get along with. The S have nothing to do with us. Every prince has a different temperament. His Highness is still good. As for Prince Yu, you have to tell him yourself. Xiao Wanru's heart sank, but her face was very calm. She replied with a soft smile. In the royal family, in fact, such a question shouldn't be asked, but since Zhang Qilan asked it in a joking manner, she had to answer. However, this answer was actually the same as not answering. She didn't know why she asked this. Chapter 1041. Zhang Qilan also came to her senses at this time and felt that she had made a slip of the tongue. She looked at Xiao Wanru with a little guilt and said, "When I think of so many things next, I feel dizzy and say something inappropriate." Her words were very straightforward, but it was in line with her usual temperament. "Since you asked and I answered, we are not rude," Xiao Wanru said with a smile, her eyes deep and elegant. Okay, let's not talk about the royal family," Luo Xiaowan said in a hurry. "Then what do you want to say? Third place?" Zhang Qilan returned to her previous teasing look and asked with a smile. Luo Xiaowan blushed again. "In fact, is this year's top scholar not as good as the last one?" Xiao Wanru helped her out. "I was in the Yuhui nunnery at this time last year, but I didn't see him. Last year, my mother didn't let me come out, so I didn't see him," Luo Xiaowan said and looked at Xiao Wanru gratefully. She was afraid that Zhang Qilan would continue to ask, so she hurriedly said, "Qilan, you came to see him. Later, I heard you talk about him for a long time. He has always been the third young master one." Last year, Luo Xiaowan was involved in her marriage. She couldn't even solve her own problems, so she didn't have the mood to see him. Last year, the top scholar was Wen Shiqi, and the third place was Qi Tianyu. The top three in the last year were indeed outstanding. All three of them were young, and I heard that none of them was engaged. The most outstanding one was, of course, the third young Master Wen. We have seen the third young Master Wen before, but it was a pity that you didn't see him that day. Zhang Qilan said with a smile, quite proud. Then why hasn't the third young Master Wen been engaged yet? The third young Master Wen's family background is excellent, and he is the top scholar. In the future, after the Prime Minister retires, he may have a great momentum. Why hasn't he been engaged yet? Luo Xiaowan was curious. Looking at the lively scene outside, she was a little worried. She had seen Wen Shiqi several times in the past. He was indeed a romantic. She only thought about such a person in her heart, but she didn't dare to have too many delusions. With the family background and character of the Prime Minister's mansion, she didn't deserve him. I heard that third young Master Wen was unwilling. Zhang Qilan hesitated. Third young Master Wen isn't young anymore. Many people his age are already married. Is it because he doesn't want to be engaged? But I heard from my mother that Madame Wen Xiang has been secretly looking for him. Luo Xiaowan became more and more surprised. She thought of an old matter and blushed. In fact, the Prime Minister's wife had also come to visit him before, but there was no further news after that. She must have heard about the marriage that he had previously arranged. Maybe he feels more free alone. Zhang Qilan smiled indifferently. How could he not want to get married at this age? Could it be that he has someone else in his heart, but the Prime Minister's wife won't agree, so he's wasting time? Luo Xiaowan was still very sensitive when it came to herself. It can't be. It doesn't look like it. Zhang Qilan became uncertain. She frowned slightly, and then looked at Xiao Wanru, who had been silent and smiling. Does Princess Qin think this is what he meant? Xiao Wanru tried not to say much about Wen Shiqi. What happened in the last life had passed. In this life, the two of them could at most be regarded as strangers who knew each other. Even later, they couldn't even be regarded as strangers who knew each other. When Chu Luqian got the news that Wen Shiqi plotted against her, Xiao Wanru understood it very well. She had to answer this question. Well, it's possible. She said vaguely. I heard that Marquis Xing and the Prime Minister's mansion have a very good relationship. The juniors of the two families often contact each other. Doesn't your mansion have any ideas? Zhang Qilan suddenly thought of another reason. She smiled and winked at Xiao Wanru. There are two more misses in your mansion. Although the status of the third miss and the fourth miss was not as good as that of the Prime Minister's mansion, it would be hard to say if they had a good relationship. In the eyes of others, the third miss and the fourth miss of Marquis Xing's mansion were indeed qualified. Well, I really don't know. I didn't grow up in Marquis Xing's mansion. When I came back, I was not a child anymore. My relationship with the other sisters in the mansion is ordinary. I don't know that the juniors of the two mansions have a good relationship. It seems that the cousin miss of their mansion has a good relationship with big sister. Xiao Wanru couldn't help laughing. The cousin miss of their mansion is very strange. I heard that she seems to have a good relationship with second young Master Wen, and it seems that they are going to talk about marriage. But now I heard. Luo Xiaowan hesitated when she said this. In fact, this was not necessarily true. When she said this, she blurted it out. Only then did she realize that it was a little inappropriate. She couldn't go on. Zhang Qilan was listening with great interest. Suddenly, Luo Xiaowan stopped talking, and she was immediately unhappy. Shan, how can you be like this? You only said half of what you wanted to say, and then you hid half of it. Anyway, we won't go around talking about it. In fact, I don't know if it's true. I accidentally said it when my mother and another madam talked about it. Luo Xiaowan was still a little hesitant. This kind of thing was really inappropriate to say. I know. Just say it. Princess Chen and I just heard it. We can't take it seriously. But Zhang Qilan waved her hand and said. Xiao Wanru looked at Zhang Qilan's expression and couldn't help laughing. She could see that Zhang Qilan was really interested. Luo Xiaowan had to say it even if she didn't want to. Okay, but I really don't know if it's true or not. I heard that cousin's parents have returned to the capital city. They are indeed discussing marriage with Prime Minister Wen's mansion, but it seems to be the marriage of third young Master Wen. However, it is different from what I heard before. It should not be true. Luo Xiaowan looked at their curious expressions and said helplessly. The matter between Gu Shishu and second young Master Wen was faintly spread. Although it was not said that Gu Shishu was a concubine, it basically said that there was something ambiguous between the two of them. At that time, Prime Minister Wen's mansion intended to let Gu Shishu be a concubine. In order to find another noble daughter-in-law for second Duke Wen, this matter was also suppressed. They were afraid that people would know that second young Master Wen had an ambiguous relationship with his cousin when he was in the mansion, and this marriage would be difficult. But in fact, some words were still faintly spread. Everyone vaguely felt that the two families were going to get married. Miss Gu's father has been promoted? Xiao Wanru thought for a while and understood the key point. This should be true. Yes, I heard that he has been promoted several times in a row. It is said that he has made great achievements as an official outside and will be in the capital city next. Zhang Qilan knew about this and answered. After that, she frowned and said disdainfully, Gu Shishu is really not worthy of third young Master Wen. Even if her status is higher, so what? Like Xiao Wanru, Zhang Qilan also keenly sensed the key point. Gu Shishu's father had been promoted. Gu Shishu had the confidence to propose to Prime Minister Wen's mansion that she wanted to marry third young Master Wen. The childs of the Wen's mansion all looked good, but the most outstanding one was, of course, third young Master Wen. Zhang Qilan remembered that when her father evaluated Wen Shiqi, he said that his future was limitless. For this reason, she scolded her elder brother and scolded him for being useless. She asked him to learn more from Wen Shiqi. They were both childs of the Prime Minister, but how could Wen Shiqi be so outstanding? This may not be true. It's just a slip of the tongue. Seeing the two of them analyzing so seriously, Luo Xiaowan panicked and hurriedly waved her hand. Xiao Wanru smiled sweetly. Zhang Qilan took Luo Xiaowan's outstretched hand and comforted her. Don't worry, it's okay. There are only 3 of us here. It doesn't matter if we talk about it. After we get out of here, we won't talk about it. All right, Luo Xiaowan said helplessly. Princess Jin, I heard that Tanhua at that time was from the same hometown as you. He was also from Jiangzhou. Zhang Qilan changed the topic and looked at Xiao Wanru with a teasing smile. Jiangzhou, Qi Tianyu came from Jiangzhou. People like Prime Minister Zhang should not only know that Qi Tianyu came from Jiangzhou. Her watery eyes were slightly dignified, but then a smile surged up to cover the dignified look in her eyes. She said lightly, not only are you from Jiangzhou, but you also know me. You even helped someone frame me before. This matter could not be hidden. Anyone who paid attention would know the grievances between the Qin's mansion and the Qi's mansion at that time. After Qin Yuru's matter was spread, these things were faintly spread. Princess Qin, don't be sad. My mother said that this kind of person is not a good person. Even if he passed the exam, so what? There is a problem with his character. Luo Xiaowan said in a hurry. Princess Qin, I'm really sorry. I don't know why I thought of this just now. Well, let's not talk about this kind of thing, and let's not talk about this kind of person. This kind of person makes people uncomfortable. Zhang Qilan said humbly. It doesn't matter. It has been so long. It has nothing to do with me if you mention it again. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. The 3 of them chatted and laughed for a while. Seeing that it was getting late, Zhang Qilan could not stay any longer and was the first to leave. She was going to leave, and Luo Xiaowan, of course, went back with her. Xiao Wanru sent them to the door of the private room and watched them go downstairs before returning to the private room. Yu Jie called the waiter to prepare hot water and make tea again. After making a cup of tea for Xiao Wanru, she said, Princess, why do I feel that Miss Zhang is strange today? Strange? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows, took the teacup, took a sip and said slowly, Yes, it's strange. It seems to be a little different from Miss Zhang in the past, Yu Jie said in a muffled voice. She couldn't tell what was different at the moment, but she just knew that the situation was a little different from the past. Maybe it's because she mentioned third young master Wen and Qi Tianyu. Xiao Wanru's eyes flickered slightly, and she already had the answer. Yes, it's these two places. They seem to be different, as if she did it on purpose. Yujia's eyes lit up and she nodded repeatedly. At that time, I felt that these two places were particularly strange. Miss Zhang should not have said such things in the past. Maybe she was in a bad mood because she was locked up today. Xiao Wanru laughed. Excuse me, is it Princess Chen inside? There was a sudden knock on the door. Several people in the private room immediately quieted down and stared at the door in astonishment. Chapter 1042. After Xiao Wanru's signal, Chu Lu went out to open the door. Seeing a handsome servant standing outside the door, she didn't recognize him at the moment. After looking him up and down, she asked, "What's the matter?" "It's really you, Your Highness." "What a coincidence. Marquis Xing just said that he saw you coming and asked you to go to the last private room." The servant smiled and pointed to the innermost private room. "Is the Marquis inside?" Chu Lu looked him up and down again and said, "I haven't seen you before." "It's normal that you haven't seen me before. I have been traveling outside and seldom go back to the mansion. I helped the Marquis with part of the affairs outside." The servant explained with a smile without taking it seriously. In other words, the person in front of her was not only a servant but also the supervisor of the outer court. There were few people in Marquis Xing's mansion who had become the supervisor of the outer court at a young age. At least, Chu Lu had never seen such a person. Hearing his words, she looked him up and down carefully before saying, "Wait." After saying that, she turned around and closed the door, shutting the servant outside. "Miss, why is the Marquis here?" Yujie, who was inside, had heard the sound and asked in surprise. Women were always most enthusiastic about watching the three tripods Jia. Xiao Jing didn't have a daughter by his side, so it was impossible for him to come here with his daughter. "Let's go and have a look." Xiao Wanru smiled slightly. When she saw the figure before, she thought it was Xiao Jing. He was so round that she thought it was him from a distance. She didn't understand why Xiao Jing specially came to call her. But since she was here, she had to go and have a look. When she opened the door again, the servant outside the door was still waiting with a smile. Seeing Xiao Wanru come out, he hurriedly stepped forward and bowed extremely respectfully. She really didn't know him. She raised her eyes slightly and said, "Let's go." The servant led the way in front of them to the innermost private room. When they reached the door, he said to the inside, "The Princess Chen is here. Let her in." There came a low cough from inside, and then Xiao Jing's voice came out. The manservant gently pushed open the door, then retreated to the side. He stretched out his hand and said, "Princess consort, please." When Xiao Wanru entered the private room, she saw not only Xiao Jing but also a woman in her 30s. She looked charming and a little shrewd. She was sitting beside Xiao Jing in a friendly manner. Seeing Xiao Wanru come in, she hurriedly stood up and stepped aside. Her actions showed a sense of flirtatiousness. Although she stood behind Xiao Jing with a smile, it still made people feel a little surprised. "Greetings, second uncle." Xiao Wanru took 2 steps forward and said. With her current status, there was no need for her to bow to Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing stood up and said with a laugh, "I thought I saw you before, so I asked the manservant to ask. It really is Princess Chen. If you are bored staying in the mansion alone, you should go out more." After Xiao Jing finished speaking, he waved to the woman next to him and introduced her. "Nyang, come and greet Princess Chen." "Greetings, Your Highness." Nyang walked over gracefully and bowed to Xiao Wanru. "At ease," Xiao Wanru said after sitting down. Then she looked up and down at the woman in front of her and asked in confusion, "Second uncle, this is..." "Nyang is a person with a bitter life. It was only when I met the Marquis that I was pulled out of the mire. In this life, I only wish to serve the Marquis in this life," Nyang said in a low voice. Chu Lu and Yujie's faces darkened. Both of them could tell that this woman was Marquis Xing's mistress. Marquis Xing's mistress had nothing to do with their master. Now she was sent to the princess. What was her opinion? Did she want the princess to take her to the public? Just now, the Mrs. of Prime Minister Zhang's mansion and the Mrs. of Duke Yangxiu's mansion were watching the show with me. Second uncle, why didn't you come to call us earlier? We could have watched the show together. But it doesn't matter. They will come back after buying flowers. Xiao Wanru withdrew her gaze and didn't pay attention to Nyang. She waved her hand and motioned for her to step back, as if she was no longer interested in her. Nyang was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that Xiao Wanru didn't pay attention to her. When she entered the door just now, she was obviously very curious. It turns out that the misses of the other two mansions are here. Although second uncle is their elder, he is still an outsider. It's not convenient for him to meet them at this time. Xiao Jing hesitated for a moment and said, of course, he didn't want to meet the two misses. After going upstairs, he looked back and saw Xiao Wanru enter the private room, so he asked someone to keep an eye on that private room. Later, he saw the other two misses come and then leave, so he asked his servant to invite Xiao Wanru over. Nyang in front of him was indeed his mistress. He originally wanted to start with Xiao Wanru. But if there were outsiders, it was really inconvenient. Then I have to go back first? Xiao Wanru asked. Your Highness, please go back first. I'll let you meet Nyang next time. Xiao Jing said helplessly. He had to waste such a good opportunity. At this time, Nyang couldn't meet outsiders. Second uncle, I'll go back first. Xiao Wanru stood up and said with a smile. Your Highness, please. Xiao Jing had to say. Xiao Wanru nodded to him and didn't look at Nyang, who was standing aside in embarrassment. She turned around and walked out and returned to the door of her private room. After entering the private room, Yu Jie and Chu Lu finally calmed down. What does the Marquis mean? What does he want to do? He brought an outsider to the princess. Does he want the princess to clear her name? Yu Jie said angrily. Chu Lu was also very angry. How can Marquis do such a thing? Even if someone knows this kind of thing first, it should be old madam of the mansion. How can he turn to the princess? How will others think of the princess? It's too much. At first glance, Xiao Wanru could tell that Nyang was not a good person. She was obviously an outsider, but she acted like a madam of a big family. She even wanted to force her way in from the princess's side. She didn't know whether she was shameless or not. At the moment, Xiao Wanru was very calm. When she connected the dots, she figured it out. It turned out that Nyang was Xiao Jing's mistress. It was said that Madam of the Jiang family had been looking for her but had not found her. It should be because Xiao Jing was very careful and seldom went to the mistress's place that Madam of the Jiang family could not find her. Unexpectedly, Xiao Jing brought her to her. It seemed that Xiao Jing had other plans. In the last life, Xiao Yanru was furious because of this woman. Unexpectedly, in this life, she appeared again. Not only did she appear, but she also seemed to want to marry into Marquis Xing's mansion. Xiao Jing liked Nyang so much that he had to let her marry into the Marquis's mansion. Even when Madam of the Jiang family was in such a bad situation, he wanted to let Nyang marry into the Marquis's mansion. The current situation in Marquis Xing's mansion was very bad. Old Madam went to the Yuhui nunnery to recuperate. Madam of the Jiang family was locked up. Zhao Shiran had a miscarriage. The third madam had been ill all the time. Moreover, she had transferred the housekeeping task to Zhao Shiran. After all, the second and third branches were in charge. With Zhao Shiran around, it was inconvenient for the third madam to intervene. Moreover, it seemed that the third madam wanted to protect herself and did not want to manage the affairs of the entire Marquis's mansion. At this time, if Xiao Jing brought this mistress in, it was very likely that he would interfere with the affairs of the housekeeping. Although there were several concubines in the entire Marquis Xing's mansion, most of them were not favored. Although this mistress was a concubine after marrying into the Marquis's mansion, with Xiao Jing's support, it was very likely that she would take charge of the affairs of the Marquis's mansion. Did Xiao Jing really like this mistress called Nyang so much that he wanted to do this at this moment? Originally, this matter had nothing to do with Xiao Wanru, but it seemed that Xiao Jing wanted to do this to her. If she hadn't left early just now, the mistress called Nyang would definitely have begged her to agree to this matter. Xiao Jing watched from the side. As a niece, she couldn't go too far. Even if she didn't agree to it, she would agree to some small requests. With Xiao Jing's character, he would definitely use such small things to seek benefits and implicate her. If Princess Chen said that she, as Princess Chen, knew about this matter long ago and asked her Yin Yang to pay respects to her, it would make people feel that she also acquiesced to it. If she asked this Yin Yang to send her off or ask her to accompany her to do something, it would further confirm the previous rumor. Stepping on her to create momentum for Yin Yang? The smile on her lips became cold silently. In this life, she would not let anyone trample on her to make a name for herself. She just casually asked about this Yin Yang before, but she did not investigate it carefully. It seemed that she had to investigate it carefully. The Zhangs had investigated for a long time but failed to find anything. Of course, this matter was not easy to investigate. But now it seemed that Xiao Jing's intention was very strange, so it was not necessarily difficult to investigate. Xiao Wanru left very late. She didn't leave until Xiao Jing left. She was not in a hurry to go back, so the three of them simply walked casually on the street. Although the three Cauldrons warriors had passed, there were many people talking about it along the way. The one who was most talked about was the Tanhua champion. After all, Yan Shi was the youngest among the three who had not been married. As for the other two, they were overshadowed by the three Cauldrons warriors of the last year. Many people claimed that the three Cauldrons warriors of the last year were the best group they had ever seen. Whether it was the number 1 scholar, the number 2 scholar, or the number 3 scholar, they all made people's eyes light up. Compared with this year's three Cauldrons warriors, it was much more lively. Many people were comparing the three Cauldrons warriors of the last 2 years. When Shichi, the number 1 scholar, was the most popular one, who overshadowed everyone. Along the way, they listened to the passers-by talking leisurely. Qin suddenly appeared on the side of the road. When she saw the three of them, she breathed a sigh of relief. She squeezed over from behind and bowed to Xiao Wanru. "Master!" "Qing, why are you here?" Chu Lu said in surprise. She didn't take Qing with her when she went out. "I asked the coachman just now and found you." "Master, there is news from the prison." Qing took another step forward, approached Xiao Wanru, and said in a low voice. Xiao Wanru paused for a moment. When she saw the surprise in Qing's eyes, her eyes lit up and she said in a low voice, "Qin Yuru?" Chapter 1043. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Qing nodded and said, "Yes, master, there's news that Qin Yuru wants to see you. She has something to tell you." Xiao Wanru had been leaving Qin Yuru alone. There was a secret in Jiangzhou, which was related to the Qin's mansion and the Qi's mansion. She couldn't get this secret from others, so she could only use Qin Yuru. Xiao Wanru knew very well that Xiao Yenru had taken advantage of the power of Prince Heching's mansion before telling Qi Tianyu about it. Qi Tianyu was an ambitious man. Otherwise, he would not have swallowed Qin Yuru's loss. His purpose was to get Duke Yong's mansion in the capital city. Now, seeing that he could use Qin Yuru to get close to the prince's mansion, how could he let go of her? When he was in Jiangzhou, Qi Tianyu was a local talent. He was also very talented in reading. In addition, he was the legitimate eldest son of the magistrate of Jiangzhou. He was very proud of his success in Jiangzhou and had never suffered any losses. The only loss he suffered was caused by the Qin sisters. But even so, everyone in Jiangzhou gave him a thumbs up when talking about him. Now that he was in the capital city, the once famous talent in Jiangzhou was somewhat unknown compared to the other outstanding talents. Even though Qi Tianyu was now a Tanhua, his official career had always been ordinary. The help he could provide in Jiangzhou was too little, almost negligible. If Qi Tianyu wanted to make a name for himself, he could only climb up by himself. Qi Tianyu wanted to mend his relationship with the Qin clan. If he could get Qin Huayong's help, it would be a good thing for Qi Tianyu. Unfortunately, he was not Qin Huayong's biological daughter. His wish to marry into the Qin clan was in vain. It was impossible for no one to mention his marriage. It was most likely that he did not fancy it. Yan Shi became the third flower. Coincidentally, Luo Xiaowan of Duke Yangxiu's mansion had just lost her engagement, so she immediately went to propose this marriage. She also came to the capital alone. Qi Tianyu naturally encountered the same thing as Yan Shi. He had not gotten married for a long time, so he must be looking for another noble lady. Unfortunately, his reputation had become a joke because of Qin Yuru. Even though he was the third flower, he did not become the son-in-law of a noble family. It was a great thing for Qi Tianyu to be connected with Prince Hiqing. For this benefit, he could ignore Qin Yuru's betrayal of him in the past, and he could even ignore that Qin Yuru was married. As long as Qin Yuru could get out of prison, enter Prince Hiqing's mansion, and become the daughter of Prince Hiqing's mansion, he could even discuss the marriage with Qin Yuru again. This was actually the best time for Qin Yuru to inquire about things. Given her current situation, Qi Tianyu would not be too guarded against her. Moreover, he would express his goodwill to Qin Yuru. After all, if Qin Yuru came out in the future, it would be a great favor. If she didn't come out in the future, it would just be a waste of Qi Tianyu's kindness. Qi Tianyu was very willing to make such an investment. Calculating the time, there should be news from Qin Yuru. When he saw Qin Yuru again in the prison, she looked completely different from before. Although she was dressed simply, she looked very tidy. Someone must have taken care of her from time to time. She even looked a little fatter than before. It seemed that she had a better life in prison than in Duke Yang's mansion. Seeing Qin Wanru coming over, she didn't look at her with sharp and vicious eyes. She just looked her up and down carefully and smiled. "Second sister, you come so fast. Doesn't Prince Chen's mansion restrict you from going out?" After greeting her, she smiled at Xiao Wanru and still used the old address. Xiao Wanru had never seen such a peaceful Xiao Yinru before. Xiao Wanru was full of a sense of transparency, as if something had broken from her heart. She was not as sinister and sharp as she used to be. Xiao Wanru was so distant that it seemed that she had broken something in her heart. She was not as sinister and sharp as she used to be. His gaze shifted downwards and landed on the thick chains on her wrists. With every step she took, it made a heavy dragging sound. "Sit down." "Thank you, second sister." Qin Yuru sat down on a stool by the side and pulled the chain on her wrist. She raised her head and said, "Second sister, bury me beside my mother after I die. In this life, at least she is the only one who truly loves me, although she has always been vicious and despicable in the eyes of others." Xiao Wanru looked at Qin Yuru and saw the relief in her eyes. After a long while, she asked, "Did Prince Hiqing's mansion react?" "Prince Hiqing's mansion doesn't lack granddaughters. Why would they care about me, an illegitimate daughter who appeared halfway?" Qin Yuru raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically and said, "Mother hasn't said it all these years. She should know that Prince Hiqing's mansion won't take me in or recognize me. It's much better for me to be the eldest lineal daughter of Ningyun Army General's mansion than to be an illegitimate daughter." During her time in prison, she went from scheming, anger, and hesitation to hatred. Then, bit by bit, she recalled everything that had happened. It was like a dream, a crazy dream. In the dream, she had gone crazy. For the sake of that dream of riches and honor, she had sacrificed everything. But in the end, she still had nothing, and even Madame D was gone. "My life is actually a tragedy. After my mother gave birth to me, she was always afraid that it would be known by others, so she tried every means to marry me back to Duke Yang's mansion. On the one hand, it was because Duke Yang's mansion was better than our Ningyuan Army General's mansion at that time. On the other hand, she was afraid that the fact that she lost her virginity at a young age would be known by others. It was best for me to marry back to stop everyone from talking. Unfortunately, my mother underestimated my uncle's ambition. Qin Yuru said slowly, without joy or anger, as if she was talking about someone else's matter. After being in the prison for so long, she slowly recalled the past, so how could she really not understand it? In the past, she was just blinded by wealth and didn't want to see and was unwilling to see her true self. Now Duke Yang's mansion is disbanded, and I can't go back to General's mansion. As for Prince Hiqing's mansion, it has nothing to do with me. The royal bloodline? Isn't this illegitimate bloodline tarnishing the royal bloodline? Qin Yuru said. The more she saw it, the more ridiculous she felt. In fact, in the eyes of others, she was just like her mother, a vicious and selfish woman. In fact, she was indeed like that. For herself, she could sacrifice everything. Now, when she had nothing, she found that what she once had was the most precious. My father didn't come to see me even once. I know that I am ashamed to him. Qin Yuru's eyes turned red, and she couldn't go on talking. She wiped the corners of her eyes with the rough cuff. Xiao Wanru didn't interrupt her and listened to her quietly. She recalled, and her eyes were as calm as water. As early as the moment she was reborn, she had already recalled her life. Now it was Qin Yuru's turn to recall the path she had taken, the mistakes she had made, and the things she regretted. Second sister, I don't ask you for anything. I just ask you to let me be buried beside my mother. Qin Yuru raised her head, wiped away her tears, and pleaded. After Madame D's death, her reputation was overturned. She was no longer the daughter-in-law of the Qin family. Old Madame of Duke Yong's mansion found an open space to bury her. Qin Yuru's current situation was very similar to Madame D's. She also had no family to leave behind. Being with Madame D was the best ending. Okay, I promise you. Xiao Wanru nodded and said slowly. Magistrate Jiang and General Qin had an agreement to watch and help each other at the very beginning. The time of this agreement was almost the time when you arrived at my home. Qin Yuru showed gratitude in her eyes. She stopped reminiscing and went straight to the point. When I arrived at the Qin's mansion? Xiao Wanru's heart thumped heavily. Her long eyelashes flickered, and her eyes were deep. Yes, he was not in Jiangzhou at that time, but Magistrate Jiang and General Qin were there. They had a good relationship and felt like old friends at first sight. They were originally not officials in the same department. Qin Yuru nodded. These were the information she got from the servant. It was also her achievement in the past few days. Although the servant was very clever and careful, she asked about the past of Jiangzhou and brought up some other things from time to time. The servant answered without paying attention, and then Qin Yuru carefully pulled it back so that he would not notice. Fortunately, the servant was ordered by Qi Tianyu to accompany her to talk about the past. Even if Qin Yuru occasionally made a slip of the tongue, she did not disturb the servant. At that time, it should be because of one thing, a thing that both of them seemed to be unwilling to let others know, so they made an agreement to watch and help each other. As for the so-called feeling like old friends at first sight, it was just said to outsiders. Qin Yuru said, I couldn't get anything more from them. It seemed that the arrival of a person made General Qin and Magistrate Jiang work together. After they joined hands, the two families wanted to marry each other and share the glory. Unfortunately, this idea was different from my mother's. That's why things happened in the future. But even so, after they came to the capital city, Qi Tianyu and his sisters still entrusted them to General Qin. If not for the close relationship between the two families, General Qin wouldn't have entrusted them at that time. Qin Yuru added with certainty. The manservant was Qi Tianyu's henchman. He followed Qi Tianyu from Jiangzhou. Although Qi Tianyu had several other manservants, he valued this manservant the most. Some affairs in Jiangzhou were handled by this manservant, including the letters between Qi Tianyu and Magistrate Jiang, the gifts they exchanged, and even some other private matters. However, the servant was very tight-lipped and didn't mention these things. He only interrupted Qin Yuru when she recalled the old things in Jiangzhou. At other times, Qin Yuru listened. I heard that this person went there occasionally and seemed to be unwilling to let others know. Moreover, this person was in a high position, so they didn't dare to offend him. They had no choice but to form an agreement to help each other to resist this person. I think some of this person's secrets were discovered by them, so they were afraid and came up with the idea of forming an alliance. This person has something to do with me? Xiao Wanru stared at Qin Yuru and asked. Yes, he has something to do with you. He is your second uncle, the current Marquis of Xing. Qin Yuru looked at Xiao Wanru and nodded slightly. Xiao Wanru closed her eyes and then slowly opened them. There was a hint of blood in her deep eyes. As expected, as expected. Chapter 1044. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. After talking with Xiao Yenru and returning to Prince Chen's mansion, Xiao Wanru sent everyone out. She sat quietly and sorted out all the news. Xiao Jing had gone to the border. At that time, the border was suppressing a rebellion. His parents had taken the young Xiao Jing and joined the army incognito. At that time, the army had been mobilized and he had gone to Qin Huayong's place. He had moved into the Qin manor and met old Madame Qin. The war was not going well. Her father wanted to send her and her pregnant mother away, but they were separated by the rebels. She was found by her father, but her mother disappeared. Then, her father died for Qin Huayong. Before he died, he entrusted her to be his second daughter. After the rebellion was quelled, Qin Huayong was appointed to Jiangzhou, which was not far from the rebellion, and became the Ningyuan army general of Jiangzhou. At the same time, Magistrate Qi, who had quelled the rebellion with him, became Magistrate Qi. One of them was a scholar while the other was a warrior. They managed the affairs and military affairs of Jiangzhou and guarded there. After his mother was separated from him, he didn't know what happened to her. All her maids died. She might have been frightened and lost her mind. At this time, she was found by someone sent by Duke Xing's mansion and sent back to Duke Xing's mansion. After giving birth to his younger brother, Xiao Yuanhao, in Duke Xing's mansion, she also died. Grandmother said that when she saw her mother, she was no longer breathing. Grandmother fainted when she saw her, and when she woke up, the coffin was already nailed shut. It was at this time that Xiao Jing went to that area. Xiao Jing was afraid that others would know that he had gone there secretly and met Yan Shi's father, Lord Yan. He was on good terms with Lord Yan, but he was afraid that Yan Shi would stay in the capital all the time, so he used Wang Xingxue to set Yan Shi up. This showed that Xiao Jing was guilty. After so many years, he still had a guilty conscience. It could be seen how shameful it was back then. What could have caused Xiao Jing to plot against Yan Shi after so many years? After thinking about it, the most likely answer was that Xiao Jing was behind what happened to her father. Xiao Jing was afraid that others would find out about this matter. In order to wipe away all traces of the past, he had done this. As long as the Yan family did not enter the capital, the secret could be hidden. Yan Shi, Qin Huayong, Magistrate Qi, and Qi Ping also had the same reason. Yan Shi wasn't the only one who saw Xiao Jing, Qin Huayong and Qi Ping were there too. They probably didn't care about seeing Xiao Jing at that time, but after their father's death, they must have sensed something. At that time, their positions were far lower than Xiao Jing's, so they helped each other and became so close to each other. All her questions had been answered. No wonder, even though she was the daughter of Qin Huayong's savior, with Qin Huayong's temperament, he would naturally be more protective of her instead of being indifferent. Could it be that Qin Huayong felt that at that time, what the others wanted was his father's life, and he just happened to be there? He might even feel that it was because of his father that he was in danger. With such an idea, adopting her became a superficial idea. If other officers and soldiers saw it, Qin Huayong had no choice but to adopt her. But if there was a real intention, how much of it was in it? At that time, Qin Yuru trampled on her and wanted her to be a scapegoat to replace Qin Yuru's reputation. As her father, Qin Huayong just watched from the side. If it weren't for her grandmother, she would have ended up in a miserable situation. Qin Huayong just watched and did not help. After all, at that time, Qin Yuru was his biological daughter. For his biological daughter, he had raised her for so many years. Even if she suffered a loss, it didn't matter. She bit her cherry lips gently. It hurt, but what hurt more was her heart. In both her lives, she had truly regarded Qin Huayong as her father. Even though Madame D and her daughter were vicious, Qin Huayong was good to her. In fact, it was good that he did not take the initiative to participate in it. But this passive participation was also an assistant that pushed her into the abyss. She could assume that it was Xiao Jing who did it and pretended to be a rebel. At that time, her father, Qin Huayong, and even Qi Ping were all there. Before her father died, her father blocked a bullet for Qin Huayong. At that time, Qin Huayong should be grateful. But after thinking about it with Qi Jiang, they might find out that these people were from Duke Xing's mansion in the capital city. Another possibility was that they caught a person alive and knew that Xiao Jing was killed by someone. Then they blamed the cause of this matter on her father, thinking that it was her father who hurt them and almost killed them here. Xiao Jing knew what they had discovered, so they formed a closer relationship with each other. That was why the two families were so close when they happened to be in the same place. The children of the two families almost grew up together, so the relationship between Qi Tianyu and Qin Yuru was tacitly agreed to at an early age. If it were not for the fact that Madame D didn't know the inside story and always wanted to cover up her own affairs and marry her daughter back, the relationship between the two families would be closer. Even if the two families didn't marry later, Qi Ping still trusted his son and daughter to Qin Huaiyong when they went to the capital city. Later, when Qi Tianyu wanted to marry her, Qin Huaiyong would also readily agree, regardless of the deteriorating relationship between the two families. She didn't know when her tears started to fall, one by one, sliding down her white and tender cheeks. Even if she bit her lips tightly, she still couldn't stop crying. Among all the things, her father and mother were the most innocent, but even so, others would not pity them. Her father died, her mother went crazy, and her younger brother was still young. No one mentioned her origin. She was just an orphan in troubled times. Her family was broken up. All the causes were the position of duke. It was all because of Xiao Jing. The reason why he did it to her biological brother was to get the position of heir of Duke Xing at that time. Your Highness. Yu Jie's concerned voice came from outside the door. Without orders, they didn't dare to come in. Several servant girls stood at the door, worried. Xiao Wanru wiped the tears on her face with a handkerchief, calmed down and said, "Come in." The 4 servant girls came in cautiously. At the sight of Xiao Wanru's face, they knew that she had cried just now. For a moment, they looked at each other and panicked. Xiao Wanru had always been their backbone. Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on the last one, Qing. She had sent Qing to inquire about Xiao Jing's mistress. "What did you find out?" "Your Highness, I found out that it is indeed Marquis Xing's mistress's mansion. It was built not long ago. I heard that he moved here from another place. He should have had this mistress for a long time. Not only does he have such a mistress, but he also has a daughter." Qing looked at Xiao Wanru's face and said. Xiao Wanru had completely sobered up at this time. She raised her eyes slightly and said with a pair of bottomless eyes, "Is it easy to find out?" "Yes, I found out after asking a few people. It is said that no one has seen the Mrs. face, only her back. She never appears in front of others, but a few people who have seen Marquis Xing know that this is his mistress's mistress." Qing thought for a while and said, "Your Highness, I feel strange. It is easy to find out, but I heard that it is not easy for Madame of Marquis Xing to find out. Besides, she has just moved to another place. I feel something is wrong." She had always been very sensitive to this kind of unusual thing. He did it on purpose. The Jiang family has never found out the place where he hid before, but now it is easy to find out this place. Not only is it easy to find out, but it also lets others know that this is his mistress's mistress and he has a daughter. Xiao Jing did it on purpose to let others know that he has such a mistress. Xiao Wanru said with a sneer. Xiao Jing had snatched the title of heir of Duke Xing and the title of Duke Xing. Now he had become Marquis Xing, and he might even lose the title of Marquis Xing. Was he planning to play another trick? Does Marquis Xing intend to let this person named Nyang enter Marquis Xing's mansion and help him deal with the internal affairs of Marquis Xing's mansion? Yu Jie said. She had also seen Yang in the private room just now. That woman is very shrewd and seems to have some means. But she may come from that place, so how can she be in public? It is impossible for her to take the power of the family from first grandma. Your Highness, I think that since Marquis Xing has not intended to let her show up for so many years and has been guarding against her, how could he let this woman enter the mansion at this time? If he cared, he would have done it long ago. Why didn't he wait until now? Chu Lu raised another question. Your Highness, I also think that there is something wrong here. Marquis Xing doesn't seem to be a person who would do such a thing for a woman, Qing said. The maids spoke one after another and finally figured out everything. No matter how they looked at it, Xiao Jing would not do such a thing. Not only would it be helpful, but it would also cause him to lose his reputation. How much did he care about this woman to make it public at this time? It was impossible. Xiao Wanru had been listening to the words of the maids calmly. The sadness on her face had faded, leaving only coldness and her cherry lips tightly pursed. After the maids finished speaking, she said slowly, "It's not for that woman." It was definitely not for the woman named Inyang. Then who was it for? Now she would take her time to see it. She would take her revenge. She would never let Xiao Jing go. Xiao Jing's family had been promoted with the blood of her family. So this time, she must make them pay with their blood. Qing, keep an eye on that mansion and that woman. Xiao Wanru paused for a moment and said, "You'd better find out about the illegitimate daughter." She had an intuition that Xiao Jing's current strange behavior might have something to do with the mysterious illegitimate daughter. Although it was inconvenient for the young woman to show up in front of others, she did not even go out. She only saw her back when she moved in, and then found out that she was a daughter. This was too unreasonable. With the upbringing of Inyang, it was impossible for her to teach a daughter to abide by the rules of girls. Chapter 1045. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Yes, princess, this servant understands. Qing replied. She could only do this now. The people in her hands were the people that her master asked her to protect princess consort. If she sent all of them out to inquire about the news, they might not be able to find anything. Moreover, it might cause a shortage of people around princess consort. Recently, the capital city had not been peaceful, and Qing was responsible for the safety of the people, so she did not dare to be careless. Qing was feeling a little uneasy right now. However, she did not know that the news of the princess of the Su nation marrying over to the Tsang nation had already started to spread. Princess Yu Tao of the Su kingdom wants to marry Chu Luqian? Chu Lue put down the note in his hand, waved it, and then handed it to his advisor, Mr. Lu. "What do you think, Mr. Lu?" After Mr. Lu received it, he carefully looked at it and laughed loudly. "Your Highness, this is a good opportunity." "What do you mean?" Chu Lue asked. "Your Highness, look, this Princess Yu Tao is going to marry Prince Chen, but Prince Chen has already married a princess. But this Princess Yu Tao is here to make peace and can't marry a concubine, so there will be conflicts between them. Isn't it good to stir up trouble?" Mr. Lu said with a smile. There were too many meanings in his words. Chu Lue thought for a while and asked tentatively, "Will my father allow my third brother to marry another princess?" "I don't think so. Princes can't be like the common people and marry a wife of the same rank as the legal wife. Otherwise, it will mess up the royal family." Mr. Lu shook his head and said, "But the situation here is different for your Highness Prince Chen. It's not bad to use this to test the emperor's intentions." "Sir, please teach me." Chu Lue bowed and said. Mr. Lu hurriedly stood up and repeatedly said that he didn't dare. Then he sat down with Chu Lue and said, "If your majesty intends to let Prince Chen marry Princess Yu Tao, you can rest assured in any aspect. You can even use Prince Chen." Her words were not very clear, but Chu Lue understood it. After thinking about it carefully, he slapped the table and said, "Well, then report the matter that Princess Yu Tao of the Su kingdom intends to marry my third brother to my father and let him make a decision." "Wait, your Highness Prince, you can't do this." Mr. Lu stopped him. But Chu Lue was confused. Since it was his father's intention, why was he not allowed to send this matter to his father? "Does your Highness know if the emperor has this information?" Mr. Lu asked with a smile. Chu Lue shook his head and said, "I don't know. The people I sent to my father's side are not powerful. I don't know the specific information." He did bribe a few people and also inserted a few people in, but they were all outside people and couldn't get close to the emperor. Because of this, he didn't know much about the things around the emperor and often didn't dare to act rashly. Since your Highness does not know if the emperor has received the news, naturally, you have not heard of this matter from other officials, right? Mr. Lu asked again. Chu Lue thought for a while and shook his head. When he went to the court today, There was nothing different from before. The matter of Marquis Xing's mansion had been settled and no one in his mansion objected. Besides, the son of Marquis Xing had provoked Infanta Yuan. Infanta Yuan and the son of Marquis Xing were both injured. It was said that Infanta Yuan and Marquis Xing's son were injured in the legs. No one knew whether Infanta Yuan could walk in the future. If Infanta Yuan was really disabled, the position of heir of duke would be fake. Could it be that they didn't want to make use of a perfectly fine child and cripple one instead? Was it reasonable to be the heir of Marquis Xing? Moreover, if these words were said, Ruaping Great Elder Princess's mansion would lose face, and it might also make the Empress and Prince Zhou angry. With so many concerns, many people expressed that it was inappropriate because the position of heir of Marquis Xing fell into the hands of Xiao Yuanhao, who was raised in Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion the day before yesterday. The next day, there was no more noise. Those who had been angry before actually calmed down for various reasons. The position of the heir of Marquis Xing had been determined, and the imperial court was peaceful and peaceful. Since no one said it, it means that no one knows it. May I ask how Your Highness Prince you knew it? Mr. Lu said meaningfully. If Chu Luiyue really went to the emperor and told him, it meant that he knew it. If the emperor didn't know it, it was very problematic. Why did he know it when the emperor didn't know it? If the emperor knew it but kept it a secret, it would be even more problematic. Even if it was a secret, wasn't Chu Luiyue's hand a little longer? No matter from which aspect, at present, Chu Luiyue could only be ignorant. I was negligent and forgot about it. Chu Luiyue also came to his senses at this time and nodded repeatedly. He had thought wrong before. What should we do now? Chu Luiyue turned his head and asked again. He really wanted to publicize this matter. No matter how he looked at it, Chu Luchen would not get a good result. For now, Your Highness, pretend that you don't know it. If someone said this in the imperial court, Your Highness, you can say a few words about what we discussed before. The point is that it was not easy to establish diplomatic relations between the two countries before. Although the Su country is a small barbaric country, it is not very obedient to the rule of the Dongtsang country. Besides, it is said that the Su country has some evil magic, which is very weird. If you can make friends with it, you should. If you don't manage the relationship well, there will be chaos in the future. Although it is small, it is difficult to conquer it because of the terrain and some evil magic, so we should make friends with it. Mr. Lu said. Chu Luiyue nodded repeatedly. This statement was the most selfless, but it forced Chu Luchen out. If Chu Luchen wanted to be obedient, he had to divorce the current Princess Qin, or let the current Princess Qin be a vice concubine. He had to give up the throne to Princess Yutao. Even Ri and Great Elder Princess could not say anything bad about it. After all, national affairs were more important than family affairs. As a princess, she should understand this. Thinking of Princess Qin, Xiao Wanru's picturesque face flashed in front of Chu Luiyue's eyes. With such a beautiful face, she felt wrong to be Chu Liuchen's vice concubine. That invalid was really not a good person. Look at how much he had harmed her. As for being divorced, Chu Luiyue thought it was unlikely, but he was sure that she would suppress Xiao Wanru. No matter how partial his father was, he should consider the special status of the Su country. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt warm in his heart. If she was a vice concubine, wouldn't his vice concubine be much better than that invalid's? Chu Luiyue coughed in a low voice and asked, Mr. Lu, do you think my third brother will divorce the current Princess Qin and give up the throne to Princess Yutao? He didn't think it was possible, but he couldn't help asking. Mr. Lu glanced at Chu Luchen and sensed something from his face. He shook his head with a smile and advised, Your Highness, you can have all kinds of women in the future. Why do you think about the one who doesn't belong to you? You'd better think about what will happen if the emperor doesn't allow Prince Qin to marry Princess Yutao. His words stunned Chu Luiyue, and he immediately woke up from the pink bubbles in his heart. Yes, there was another possibility, which was that the emperor and the empress dowager didn't allow it. It was really possible, at least more likely than letting Chu Luchen divorce Xiao Wanru. Then, does it mean that Chu Luchen also has a possibility? After saying this, Chu Luiyue suddenly stood up, clasped his hands behind his back, and paced around twice. Then he tightly pursed his thin lips and suppressed the anger in his heart. Father should know who his biological son is. No matter how muddle-headed a person was, he would not pass the throne to his son, not to mention that his father had never been a muddle-headed person. Sometimes, Chu Luiwei hoped that his father was muddle-headed, but now his father had been very clear, but Chu Luiwei couldn't see through Chu Liuchen's affairs. Obviously, Chu Luiwei shouldn't have had the chance to grow up, but his father and Imperial grandmother protected him wholeheartedly and left him aside, so that when he met Chu Liuchen, he was a little weaker. Every time he thought of this, Chu Luiwei felt it was hard to calm down and his chest was stuffy. "Your Highness, have you ever thought, or?" Mr. Lu hesitated. It was rebellious to say this, but it was exactly what he thought. "Mr. Lu, please say it. There is no one else here, so speak freely," Chu Luiwei said. "Your Highness, do you think it is possible that Prince Qin and the Emperor?" Mr. Lu didn't dare to continue speaking, and his voice unconsciously trembled. If this was true, it would be a royal secret, and those who knew it would be hard to survive. Chu Luiwei didn't realize it at first, but after he reacted, he shook his hand with a bitter smile and said, "Mr. Lu, you worry too much. It is absolutely impossible. How could the eldest son of the former emperor have anything to do with his father? It may be related to concubine Lan. Concubine Lan is my father's favorite concubine, and it is said that she is the biological sister of the former empress, but I have never seen her." Chu Luiwei said. This was a guess told by his mother. In fact, people in the palace had always had a lot of guesses about concubine Lan. Some people said that concubine Lan was the emperor's favorite concubine, even now. Some people said that concubine Lan used to be the emperor's favorite concubine, but now she was not. Otherwise, she would not have been locked up and even not allowed to greet the empress and the empress dowager. Some people said that concubine Lan was now old and didn't have much time left. There were many guesses about concubine Lan in the palace, but Chu Luiwei's mother believed the most that concubine Lan was the biological sister of the former empress. Concubine Lan? Why have I never heard of it? Mr. Lu asked in surprise. He really didn't know that there was such a concubine in the palace, and he had never heard that the emperor had such a favorite concubine in the past. Only the people in the palace should know something about concubine Lan, because concubine Lan doesn't seem to be favored now, and my father basically doesn't go to her. No one will care about a concubine who is out of date and has been grounded and detained. What's more, it has been more than 10 years. Who will remember such a concubine? Chu Luiwei said indifferently. If his mother hadn't pointed out the existence of such a concubine, he was afraid that he wouldn't have known about it. For a period of time, he even had another guess, and for this guess, he specially asked Xiao Yanru to investigate the past of concubine Lan. Concubine Lan's life was full of twists and turns, and it was pitiful. Chapter 1046. It was said that concubine Lan was originally the younger sister of the former empress. It was said that she was also an outstanding beauty, but her fate was not good. She was judged to be a jinx to her parents since she was a child, so she was sent to a nunnery to cultivate in seclusion. She was raised in a nunnery since she was a child. If the emperor, who was still a prince at that time, had not seen her by chance, fallen in love with her at first sight and brought her back to his mansion, she would probably have died in a nunnery. When the emperor brought her back to his mansion, he did not know her identity. He only thought that she was an orphan in troubled times who was born in a nunnery. Later, he learned about her background from concubine Lan. The emperor naturally took her to meet her relatives, but that was all. At that time, the late emperor was seriously ill and the whole country was paying attention to the late emperor. Who would care about a little girl? Moreover, it was just a concubine, so this matter was minimized and compressed. Because the emperor was seriously ill, the ceremony of concubine was not held. He only said that it would be held in the future, and only a few people knew about it. After the death of the former emperor, the emperor succeeded the throne and concubine Lan was conferred the title of concubine Lan. But a few days later, she angered the emperor because of the title and was put in custody. She had been put in custody for so many years. Many new people in the harem had not even heard of the title of concubine Lan. Only a few old people like Concubine Do would remember such a thing and such a person. Concubine Lan's residence was also very remote, not too far from the cold palace. At first glance, it was obvious that she had been neglected. With so many concubines in the palace, who would pay attention to a concubine who had not given birth to a child and had lost favor early? If Xiao Yanru had not found that concubine Lan was favored at that time, Chu Liwei would not have cared so much about such a concubine. He specially asked his mother about it and found that concubine Lan was probably Chu Liu's biological aunt. Is she still alive after being locked up for so long? After hearing Chu Liu's words, Mr. Lu frowned and raised a new question. This should be alive. There are Imperial guards guarding the gate of the palace, and even the Empress is not allowed to enter. Chu Liu thought for a while and said, he also wanted to investigate this matter later, so he naturally did a lot of tricks in it. But after investigating, he only found this. Still not allowing the Empress to enter? Your Highness, this subordinate feels that there is a problem here. Teacher Lu thought for a moment and said, could it be that this consort Lan is actually not out of favor? The so-called confinement is to protect her. After all, her status is not as high as the Empress, and she has not given birth to an heir. Chu Liwei interrupted Mr. Lu's words and said with a smile, it's impossible. Even though the Empress has a high status, if she is protected by my father, can't he protect a favorite concubine? If the Empress was really so useful, there was no need to fight for the throne at present. It must be given to Chu Liuzhou, and it had nothing to do with her at all. Although the Empress's position was important in the inner palace, it was of no use in the previous court. Since that's not the case, could it be that the Emperor still thinks highly of Prince Qin because of concubine Lan's kindness? Even if Prince Qin is the Emperor's nephew, he still has a very high position in the Emperor's heart? Mr. Lu put forward a second guess. Did father think highly of Chu Luqian because of concubine Lan? Chu Liwei had never thought of this idea before, but now he felt that it was really possible. At that time, Xiao Yanru repeatedly told him that this concubine Lan must be very favored by the Emperor. Even if she was grounded now, it was possible that he really wanted to protect her. It was certain that concubine Lan was still alive. Otherwise, the Imperial guards there would have been withdrawn long ago. Concubine Lan had no other relatives except for her sister's son, Chu Luqian. It was possible that father doted on Chu Luqian more for the sake of concubine Lan's concern. Thinking of this, concubine Lan was really amazing. She had been locked up for so many years, but could she still affect father? Chu Liu's face became serious. This was something he had neglected. If he had known that this concubine Lan had such great ability, he should have asked Xiao Yanru to investigate more carefully. Your Highness, you can take your time to investigate the matter of concubine Lan. The most important thing now is Prince Qin. The Emperor doesn't know what to do with Prince Qin, and it's not certain where Princess Yutao will go. But if you get rid of one person now, it will definitely make this marriage happen. The Emperor has to agree to this marriage even if he doesn't agree. Mr. Lu composed himself and came up with an idea. This was a new idea he had just come up with, which was the best way to solve the current dilemma. Who? Chu Liwei asked with a frown. He had a bad feeling. Get rid of Princess Qin. Mr. Lu tapped his hand on the table gently and said concisely. No. Chu Liwei said subconsciously. After saying that, his heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he had a very indescribable feeling. Your Highness, Princess Qin is the key. If Princess Qin dies, there will be no doubt that Princess Yutao will marry Prince Qin. Prince Qin can't use the fact that he already has Princess Qin as an excuse. Even if the Emperor has other ideas, he will definitely agree to this marriage for the sake of national affairs. As long as Prince Qin marries this foreign Princess Yutao, no matter who is involved behind him, it will be impossible for him to have anything to do with the Emperor. The future prince can't have the blood of the Su kingdom. Mr. Lu looked at Chu Liwei in confusion. Wasn't this the best idea? He could break through 1,000 lines with his own strength and win the battle from 1,000 miles away. Princess Qin is just a weak woman. In fact, she is not so useful. Chu Liyue shook his head and explained vaguely. Your Highness, don't bother about trifles when doing big things. Princess Qin is really the key to everything. It doesn't matter whether she is a weak woman or not, but her current status and situation. If you can kill her, all the problems will be solved. For your Highness, it will be a great joy. Mr. Lu tried to persuade him. He didn't understand why Prince Yu, who had always been obedient to him, would hesitate at this time. At this time, shouldn't he directly agree to this matter and send someone to secretly find an opportunity? She is a weak woman. Since you want her to leave this position, killing her is not the only way. In fact, you can kidnap her. Chu Liyue calmed down and said, if that woman, who was as beautiful as a peony and as elegant as glass, were to disappear from the world just like that, it would truly be heartbreaking. Kidnap her? After thinking about it, Mr. Lu's eyes lit up and he nodded repeatedly. Your Highness's idea is good and even better than mine. If we kidnap her, even if we find her later, her reputation will be ruined and she will not be able to sit firmly on the position of Princess Yutao. If we can't find her back, no one will stand in Princess Yutao's way. That's good, that's good. Then think of a way to kidnap her. Hearing Mr. Lu's agreement, Chu Liyue's heart also became excited. Come on, such a beautiful woman could be kidnapped. Of course, he would not return her to Chu Luchen. Now that the arrogant and overbearing Chu Luchen was not in the capital city, it was the best time. However, at this time, not only Chu Liyue but also Chu Liuzhou had the same idea as him. Mother, kidnap her. It's the best for Princess Yutao to marry Chu Luchen, lest he thinks that he is so great, as if he is the future crown prince. Chu Liuzhou also proposed to the Empress. Thinking of Xiao Wanru's appearance, his heart was also burning. He had been jealous of Chu Luchen before. Chu Luchen was obviously a sick man who was about to die, but he could marry such a stunning beauty. Although he was a princess and a concubine, the two of them were not as good as Xiao Wanru. Every time he thought of this, Chu Liuzhou felt annoyed. In terms of identity, he was the most noble. Why did the best woman marry the useless sick man instead of him? Just kill her and end all troubles. The Empress insisted, her face a little blue in the dim window. How could she not understand her son's character? He really fell in love with Princess Qin. That couldn't be done. Since Xiao Wanru had already married Princess Qin, she shouldn't have anything to do with her son. If she really got involved with Princess Qin, it would be a heavy stroke in the history books in the future, and it would ruin her son's reputation. Mother, if we really kill Princess Qin, in case something happens, there will be no room for negotiation. Chu Liuzhou said in a low voice. His words made the Empress silent for a while. After a long while, she gritted her teeth and looked at Chu Liuzhou and said, since you have to kidnap her, let me deal with her after the kidnapping. You can't keep her. Xiao Wanru seemed to be a hot potato. It was not a good thing for her son to keep her. The Empress thought it was better to keep her in her own hands. I'll do as you say, mother. Chu Liuzhou didn't disobey the Empress at all, which made the Empress show a smile on her face, which diluted her previous blue face. It's the best for my son to think so. What I'm doing is for your own good. At this time, we can't have other ideas. We should fight steadily step by step. At present, our position seems to be noble, but it's very dangerous. On the one hand, we should be careful of this, and on the other hand, we should be careful of that. Don't let anyone take advantage of the loophole and become the last fisherman. The Empress hinted. She was afraid that if she fought with Chu Luchen here, Chu Liyue would become the aureole, which would be good for him. Mother, rest assured. I will keep it in mind. Chu Liuzhou nodded repeatedly. Before the envoys came back, there was already a turbulent situation in the capital city. Many people had received the news that Princess Yutao of the Su state was going to marry Prince Qin. But didn't Prince Qin already have a princess? This matter seemed to be very difficult to deal with. But no one said it out in the open. Everyone hid it in their hearts, waiting for a suitable opportunity to follow behind the crowd to express their opinions. At this time, other things became trivial. No one cared that Infanta Yuan was disfigured, and no one cared that the first young master of Marquis Xing's mansion had hurt his leg. None of them would be good if they met each other. Chapter 1047. Your Highness, look at Prince's letter by pigeon. Qing hurriedly took a letter and handed it to Xiao Wanru. Chu Liuchen's previous letters were all sent from the courier station and even followed the Empress Dowager's letter. Compared with the Empress Dowager's thick letter, Xiao Wanru's letter was basically a little thinner. But even so, it was basically as thick as several sheets of paper. At this time, there was only one piece of paper. After opening it, there were only a few words. It's a rumor that Princess Yutao will marry me. Be careful. These words were written with a red cinnabar pen. The strokes were strong and powerful, and the words were written on the back of the paper. The back of the paper was faintly blood red, which made people's heart palpitate. Xiao Wanru's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She reached out to touch her head and closed her eyes slightly. This kind of red words made her feel strange and out of place. It inexplicably reminded her of the remnant memory of her last life. In her memory, there was a blood-red imperial palace and so many dead palace maids and beauties. Your Highness, what's wrong with you? Qing hurriedly asked when she saw Xiao Wanru's situation. I'm fine. Xiao Wanru shook her head, forced her eyes open, folded the paper in her hand, and then took a deep breath. We won't go out of the mansion recently. Everything will be dealt with in the mansion. Xiao Wanru ordered, strengthen the guards everywhere. If anything goes wrong, report to me immediately. Shall I inform the Imperial Palace? Qing agreed and said again. Now the princess's safety fell on her, so Qing was a little worried. There's no need to tell the Imperial Palace. It's important for us to deal with all kinds of changes. Xiao Wanru shook her head. The situation in the Imperial Palace was unclear, and she couldn't see through it for the time being. It was better to stay in her mansion. Chu Liuchen sent a letter by pigeon, which naturally meant that he wanted her to be very careful. It could be seen that someone really wanted to marry her. She had always believed in Chu Liuchen's words. Chu Liuchen had said in his previous letter that he had dealt with Princess Yutao. Now at this time, he sent a letter by pigeon, which was simple but clear. Someone wanted Princess Yutao to marry Chu Liuchen, and she was the only obstacle. Only if she died could she make way for Princess Yutao. Thinking of this, she realized that she was really in danger. Your Highness, before he left, His Highness said that if something really happened here and we couldn't stop it, you should go to the Imperial Palace to find Concubine Lan and ask her to protect you. Qing suggested. Concubine Lan? Xiao Wanru frowned slightly. She had not only heard of this Concubine Lan, but had also seen her. But after inquiring about it, she found that almost no one had seen this Concubine Lan. It was said that those who had seen her were all very old. Besides, it had been a long time. It was only said that this Concubine Lan was very beautiful, but it was not clear about the details. When she mentioned Concubine Lan to Chu Liuchen before, Chu Liuchen didn't look happy, but now he asked her to seek shelter from this Concubine Lan. I'll leave the security of the mansion to you. Go and ask Nanny Zheng to come here. Xiao Wanru said. Since Concubine Lan had been mentioned and Concubine Lan had indeed sent someone here before, she had to ask Nanny Zheng about it. Qing left. After a while, Nanny Zheng came in, bowed to Xiao Wanru, and then stepped aside. Nanny Zheng, please sit down. Xiao Wanru said politely. After Nanny Zheng thanked Xiao Wanru and sat on the round stool on the right of Xiao Wanru. She looked at Xiao Wanru with a slight smile. Nanny, can you tell me whether Concubine Lan is reliable or not? Xiao Wanru looked at Nanny Zheng with a serious face and asked bluntly. Your Highness, don't worry. Concubine Lan is reliable to you. She can't have any bad intentions towards you and Prince Chen, Nanny Zheng said without hesitation in a straightforward tone without any delay. Won't she do it for someone else? Xiao Wanru changed her question and asked. She won't put His Highness and you in danger for someone else. Concubine Lan has always owed His Highness and has always wanted to treat him well, but His Highness has always refused. Nanny Zheng said and was vague about the key points. Xiao Wanru took a deep look at Nanny Zheng and didn't intend to ask any more. She would find out what Chu Luchan wanted her to know, and she wouldn't ask about what he didn't want her to know. She had seen Nanny Zheng's performance just now and could tell that concubine Lan was sincere about Chu Luchan. Moreover, Chu Luchan also said so, which meant that Chu Luchan also thought that concubine Lan was reliable. In this case, she could borrow concubine Lan's strength at the critical moment. Of course, it was better to do it by herself. Xiao Wanru didn't want to use concubine Lan's strength until the last moment. Your Highness, concubine Lan means that if you are in danger, she can protect you. Even the Empress can't do anything to her. Nanny Zheng was afraid that Xiao Wanru was not confident, so she lowered her voice and said. Xiao Wanru's watery eyes lit up and her thick eyelashes raised. She was shocked in her heart. What kind of confidence made concubine Lan dare to say such a thing? The master of the Imperial harem was the Empress. Xiao Wanru had seen concubine Lan before. Concubine Lan was definitely a beautiful person, so it was impossible for her to say such arrogant words. However, why did it turn out like this? Had she misunderstood something? Nanny, can you get in touch with concubine Lan? Xiao Wanru calmed down and asked slowly. It was not the time to figure out why concubine Lan dared to say so. Your Highness, don't worry. I can do it. Concubine Lan also found something unusual that day, so she sent someone to you. Nanny Zheng nodded and said affirmatively. Okay, let's wait and see. Xiao Wanru said coldly, knowing what to do. The corners of her red lips were slightly raised, showing a trace of coldness. Fortune came from danger. At this time, all the people in the imperial court were concerned about Princess Yutao of the Su Kingdom, so she could do what she wanted carefully and adapt to the situation as soon as possible. The Empress Dowager's birthday was just around the corner, and this was a critical moment. After waving her hand to ask Nanny Zheng to leave, Xiao Wanru sat alone in the room and thought for a while before asking someone to call Nanny Yu over. Nanny Yu was now the supervisor of the inner court, and the housekeeper was in charge of the affairs outside. Both the housekeeper and the supervisor of the outer court were Chu Liuchen's subordinates. Even if Chu Luchan was not here, things would be settled smoothly. Xiao Wanru did not intervene in the affairs of the outer court. Since Chu Luchan trusted the people of the outer court, her intervention would make them panic. Nanny Yu did not come quickly. She had a lot of things to do, so the servant girl did not find her for a while. Later, she found her in the kitchen. Hearing that Xiao Wanru was looking for her, Nanny Yu ran over, panting and sweating. Nanny, don't worry. It's nothing serious. I just want to ask about some trivial matters. Xiao Wanru smiled and asked Yu Jie to pour tea for Nanny Yu. After sitting down and drinking a cup of tea, Nanny calmed down. She reached out to wipe the sweat on her forehead and said with a wry smile, I'm old. How could I be so inexperienced in the past? Nanny, you're young. It's the right time. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be so comfortable. Xiao Wanru said with a smile. Chu Lu brought up a basin of warm water and let Nanny Yu clean her face. Then she bowed and sat down again. After Nanny Yu sat down again, Xiao Wanru asked with a smile, Nanny Yu, you were in the kitchen just now. Did something happen? Nanny Yu was in charge of the affairs of the inner court, but she did not have to do everything by herself. There were a lot of stewards under her. Xiao Wanru usually asked her servants to do it. Everything in the backyard of Prince Chen's mansion was in good order. The inner courtyard was now under Xiao Wanru's charge. Basically, she called a few stewards to inquire about things every day, and Nanny Yu was in charge of other things. It could be said that Nanny Yu was in charge of all personnel matters, and the junior stewards went to Nanny Yu to deal with things. There is indeed something wrong, but it's not a big deal. There's something wrong with the dishes that were delivered before, so I went to have a look. The kitchen is a little far from here, so I came late. Nanny Yu said angrily. What's the matter? Xiao Wanru asked leisurely. In fact, it's really not a big deal. One of the people who helped deliver the dishes in the mansion was sick, so he asked someone else to deliver the dishes. But the new person who came here is inexperienced. Although the quantity and other things are right, the quality of the dishes is obviously not good. The steward of the kitchen asked me to have a look. Nanny Yu said, Can't you just turn away the bad dishes? Xiao Wenru was surprised. It was indeed not a big deal. Couldn't they just turn back the bad dishes and deliver them again? I'm afraid I can't do this, Nanny Yu said in embarrassment. Why not? Is there something wrong with it? Xiao Wenru's pink and tender face showed a trace of surprise. She didn't think there was anything wrong with this kind of thing. I heard that the person who delivered the dishes has something to do with the chief steward. He came to deliver the dishes in the face of the chief steward. If he turns away the dishes, he will be humiliating the chief steward. The servants in the kitchen don't dare to do it. In fact, I don't dare to do it either. Nanny Yu sighed and said helplessly. She was the princess's dowry, but the chief steward was the prince's henchman, and all the affairs inside and outside the mansion were handled by the chief steward. Speaking of the chief steward, Nanny Yu was actually convinced. At first glance, she could tell that the chief steward was a scheming person. Nanny Yu felt that compared with her, the chief steward was obviously several levels higher, and she couldn't compare with him. If it weren't for the princess's support, Nanny Yu would feel very flustered every time she saw the chief steward. What's wrong with the dishes? Xiao Wenru thought for a while and asked. There are a lot of rotten leaves on the outside of the cabbage, and some sparse vegetables don't look fresh. As for the meat, most of them are fat, which is obviously not good meat. There are also some potatoes, which look much smaller. Nanny Yu thought for a while and gave an example. Nanny, how did you deal with it? Xiao Wenru blinked her long eyelashes and asked. I went to ask the chief steward about it before. The chief steward said that I would make the decision. I really didn't dare to make the decision at the moment. I originally wanted to talk to the princess, but the princess happened to look for me, so I hurried over. Nanny Yu said with a wry smile. Chapter 1048. Nanny Yu really didn't dare to make a decision on this matter. Although she was the wet nurse of the princess, she heard that the chief steward was the chief eunuch in the palace who had raised the prince since he was a child. In the previous dynasty, he was the chief eunuch of the former empress. She, a small wet nurse, couldn't compare with him. What do you think, Nanny? Xiao Wenru, who had understood everything by now, asked calmly. I mean, Your Highness, don't have a conflict with the chief steward because of this kind of thing. Before I came here, I had already told the supervisor of the kitchen to rebuke the person who sent the dishes when he sent the dishes here tomorrow and tell him not to send some inferior dishes if he still wanted to send good dishes in the future. Nanny Yu said to keep the peace. So we just let it go? Xiao Wenru raised her eyebrows. Your Highness, it's not a big deal to take a step back, isn't it? We can't let the prince and you have a grudge because of this kind of thing. Nanny Yu thought that Xiao Wenru didn't want to keep the peace, so she hurriedly persuaded, the chief steward has been treating the prince differently since he was a child. He watched the prince grow up. I heard that Xiao Xuanzi, the prince's servant, was raised by the chief steward. Looking at Nanny Yu, who looked anxious, Xiao Wenru's heart softened. Although she was not very useful as a wet nurse, she was loyal to her in both her previous life and this life. As long as it was related to her, she would give in. Even though she was now the chief steward of the inner court, she didn't become arrogant. This should also be someone else's mistake. Many women married into their husbands' families, and the first thing they did was to seize power. If they didn't do anything wrong, they had to find some mistakes and arrange their own people to take over. But it was different for her. Although she looked fierce in the past, she was of the same mind as Chu Luchen. She had always believed in Chu Liuchen's decisions, and now she would not make a show of strength to his chief steward just because Chu Luchen was not here. She had thought about it before. If someone wanted to plot against her secretly, they would not rest until she left Prince Chen's mansion. She was a woman in the inner court and couldn't handle big things. What's more, Chu Luchen was not here now. Even if something big happened, it couldn't be blamed on her. Then there was only a small matter. Every family had their own trifles. Which part of the mansion was the most prone to accidents? The kitchen was the place where accidents were most likely to happen, because there were new dishes coming in every day, so it was inevitable that there would be contact with the outside every day. She just didn't expect that something would happen in the mansion's kitchen before she could give her orders. It seemed that some people really couldn't wait to harm her. The person who was trying to harm him knew him well. He knew that he couldn't tolerate even the slightest bit of sand in his eyes. That's why he came to the kitchen. If he could cause a rift between him and this chief steward, then the following matters would be easier to handle. What they didn't expect was that Nanny Yu was so loyal and timid that she wouldn't make the decision on her own even if it was related to the front yard. She even had to report it to them. Obviously, they had misjudged her. Those who had died once would not fuss over some small gains and losses. Nanny, be careful. Someone wants to deal with our mansion, and Prince is not here now. If those people succeed, I'm afraid I will lose my life. Xiao Wanru didn't hide it and said to Nanny Yu bluntly. Nanny Yu was so frightened that her face changed drastically. She stood up from the stool and stared at the scene in horror. To Xiao Wanru. It was also the first time for the two maids to hear Xiao Wanru say such words. They were so scared that they couldn't speak for a while. Your Highness, why do you say that? Nanny Yu asked in a trembling voice after a long while. Yes, Princess, who wants to harm you? Who has eaten the heart of a bear and the heart of a leopard? Yu Jie also came to her senses and immediately said angrily. Wang Fei, we won't go anywhere. Let's just stay in the Fu and see who else dares to touch us. Chu Lu thought more and suggested with a pale face. Xiao Wanru's words scared the three of them. Nanny, please sit down. That's just what I said. Prince has already reminded us in his letter, so we have to be more careful during this time. Prince is very reassured that the head housekeeper will handle the affairs of the manor. I am also very reassured. If your matter is in conflict with the head housekeepers, the head housekeeper will take the lead. In this way, we can be of one mind and get through the difficulties together. Xiao Wanru comforted them with a smile. Nanny Yu nodded repeatedly and said, Your Highness, don't worry. I will. I will never argue with the head housekeeper, nor will I embarrass him. As long as the head housekeeper can protect you, I can do anything. Nanny Yu was really frightened. At this time, she did not want to have a conflict with the head butler. Even if the head butler threw away all the vegetables in the kitchen, she would at most ask someone to pick them up. She would not be angry with the head butler. Her princess's life was the most important. She must wait for the prince to come back. Although the prince looked a little sick and weak, he was the backbone of the whole mansion. Now that the prince was not here and the princess's safety was not guaranteed, Nanny Yu felt that she had a great responsibility. This kind of vegetables was a trivial matter and it didn't matter. Nanny, there may be more things. There will be more things in the future. Xiao Wanru hinted with a smile. Your Highness, don't worry. I will deal with it calmly. I will never let it affect the relationship between the inner court and the outer court, and I will not intervene in the affairs of the outer court. Nanny Yu had little experience before. Later, after being taught by Nanny Zheng for a period of time, she was familiar with the affairs of the backyard of Prince Chen's mansion and slowly got on the right path. Sometimes, Nanny Zheng would talk to her about things in the palace. Nanny Yu had heard a lot of things, so she naturally had some thoughts. She felt that she couldn't be like those masters in the palace who had been doing well at first, but now they were burdened by a servant. That's good. Then let's wait slowly. Xiao Wanru said meaningfully, and her eyes slowly became gloomy. She had to deal with all changes by remaining unchanged. No matter how anyone wanted to deal with her, she could only wait in the mansion. Since the kitchen was a breakthrough, she could let someone keep an eye on it. Nanny, Qin Yu has been helping you in the past and managing things for you from time to time. Let Qin Yu keep an eye on the kitchen. As the supervisor of the inner court, you can't keep an eye on the kitchen all day long, which inevitably makes a big deal out of nothing. Qin Yu is different. She can help me and is also my personal principal maid. Qin Yu was Xiao Wanru's earliest maid. Like Nanny Yu, she was the most loyal one. However, after she came to the capital city, she was too timid and not as strong as Yu Jie. She couldn't help Yu Jie at the critical moment, so she wholeheartedly helped Nanny Yu. Although Xiao Wanru still served Nanny Yu, she did much less than Yu Jie and Chu Lu. However, she had always been the principal maid. While helping Nanny Yu, she also had some prestige among the servants. At this moment, it was indeed the most suitable candidate to let Qin Yu be in charge. Suitable candidates. Alright, this old servant understands. This old servant will inform Qingyue later. Oh, what a coincidence. When the accident happened, Qingyue happened to be there, so I brought Qingyue with me. When Princess Yu called for people, Qingyue stayed behind to count the number of spoiled dishes. She should still be in the kitchen now, which is very similar to Princess Yu's intention. Nanny Yu slapped her thigh and said with a smile, "Oh, that's just right." Xiao Wenru nodded with a smile. The envoy came back. Not only did he come back, but he also returned with the two princesses of the Su Kingdom and some generous gifts. Speaking of which, this mission was quite successful. Of course, the most successful thing was the letter of credence from the king of the Su Kingdom in Prince Chen's hands. The Su Kingdom was a small affiliated country of the Dongtsang Kingdom. In the past, it also sent gifts, but in recent years, it had been less and less, and almost no envoy came to pay tribute. Now it was a new agreement with the Su Kingdom, and the letter of credence also indicated that it would come to the capital city of the Dongtsang Kingdom every year. The matter of Princess Yu Yan marrying Chu Qing had come to a conclusion. As for Princess Yu Tao, she was traveling in the name of marriage. It was said that this title originally belonged to Princess Yu Yan's brother, the first prince. Later, for some reason, it fell on Princess Yu Tao. As a result, Princess Yu Tao had no choice but to follow the diplomatic group to the capital of Eastern Song Kingdom. They had only been on the road for a day and a few hours, but Prince Chen could not bear it and asked for an early rest. No one in the team, whether it was Chu Qing, who was full of worries, or Qin Huaiyong, who looked serious, could refuse this righteous decision. No one could be stronger than Prince Chen. Looking at the sun setting high in the sky, they had no choice but to go to the post station and have a rest. In the largest yard of the post station, there were 8 guards standing at the door, which showed that this prince was much more superior than Commandery Prince Qing. There were only 2 guards at the door of Commandery Prince Qing. Looking further inside, the courtyard was quiet and solemn, revealing a bit of sternness. This made Princess Yu Yan, who was passing by, feel apprehensive. This Prince Chen was so handsome and kind. Although he was a little delicate, he was a good person. Why did these guards all look murderous and frightening? It was said that this prince's body had always been like this. He was really handsome, like the legendary son of the sun. Thinking of this, Princess Yu Yan's face turned slightly red, and there was a bit of shyness in her eyes. She turned back and found a place to slowly walk over. It would be great if she could meet Prince Chen by chance. In the main room, it was not as beautiful as Princess Yu Yan imagined. "How's it going?" Chu Luchen leisurely leaned on the thick soft cushion, but a trace of malice flashed in his eyes. In the past, he looked as gentle as jade, but now there was a bit of bloodthirstiness in his ruthlessness. Xiao Xuanzi stepped back and reported, "Master, don't worry, it has been done." At present, the master was the real face, and the gentle as jade in the past was just a mask. Who could take it as the real one? Has the princess also arranged it? Chu Luchen asked again. "Master, don't worry. The princess has arranged it more appropriately. Not only Qing'er's people, but also another group of people secretly pay attention to Princess Chen. They will never let the princess be hurt." Xiao Xuanzi knew Chu Liuchen's mind best, and he knew that his master was worried about the princess. This princess was the master's favorite. Even if the princess did not care about him, she would definitely care about the princess. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.